course I say that lovingly, because he has nothing.
Sam Seder.
It's the H3. Hello, everybody, and thank you for coming. It's the H3 show. The date is April 30th. The year is 2025. The guest is Sam Seder.
Woo! Oh, there he is. Oh no, Sam Seder.
Now, this has been the long-awaited, much requested. I've called him colloquially as approved Jew, Sam Seder. Of course, I say that lovingly, because he has nothing to do with this stupid.
They're obviously Jewish.
This stupid situation where people have demanded that I talk to him to show how serious I am about
relevant Hassan slop. I wish that I don't know if Ethan is ready for this convo. I thought about writing out publicly, like, here are like 5 questions I really wish that pro-Palestinians would be honest about before you can have a conversation on the future of Israel-Palestine. But I feel like if I wrote anything out, if Ethan were to bring any of them up, they're going to say that I like prepped them or something. So what is this? Hold on.
Hassan said about, like, everything Hassan said about you collaborating with Destiny was correct. Like, what the fuck is that, you know? Because Destiny isn't just like repulsive because of, but if you back out, aren't you worried that he will just call you a coward? I know it's a shitty thing for him to do, but just still thinking about your stream. Yeah, I mean, if he puts up Destiny or any other like banned person, I will get banned on Twitch. So.
Oh my God, he's such a fucking pussy. Can you hear me? I don't want to get banned. I like I don't want to get banned. He's so scared. I would never ambush him, by the way. That would be so rude.
So yeah, I'm not gonna fucking get banned on Twitch.
Oh, he's pre-making arguments to run away. That's what he's doing right now. I understand.
Just because Ethan wanted to do a troll, and I will bring that up and I will communicate that while I'm on his stream as well. But you know, it is what it is. It's not like I'm I'll still have a couple words before I pull out of the. I'm more worried about my stubborn nature, where I will.
His stubborn nature. Dude, how does his audience buy this shit? What are you talking about?
Just like keep going and then I'll fucking get banned. I thought Twitch changed that policy. No, it's not. It's different. This is like.
They changed the policy so I'd be able to watch Destiny's videos, but they kept the policy in place so I'm protected from Destiny ambushing me on a stream.
Twitch changed the policy where you can watch a content creator that's been banned, but you can't literally fucking talk to a content creator directly and have him on your show while they are banned. Like communicating directly communicating with a permanently banned streamer is a big no-no still on the platform. It's just like straightforward ban evasion.
Based. Oh, also wait, I wanted to make a quick prediction on this so that I could trigger that one chatter. He's gonna she just real quick and then we'll go back to anything. She was complaining about something, I don't even remember what she was complaining about, and he's gonna say, well, you're gonna have to contend with the fact that green energy. Why is green energy cheaper in Texas than it is in California when Texas is more conservative than California? No? Is that what he's gonna say? Hold on.
Why is it easier to build green energy in Texas than California?
God! I'm in the zone. I'm constantly there. I'm everywhere. My brain is firing on all cylinders at all points in time. Okay, sorry. We'll go back to this. All right.
About this. Well, I'm doing that. And tomorrow...
I did do the thing. I
told Hassan that I would be speaking with Sam Seder first, as per his demand. Which means tomorrow, which means Friday, Hasan Piker. Young Turk fame. The Uyghur name, or how do you say his last name? No, how do you say Chank's last name?
He was right. Uyghur Nation, right?
Yeah, Uyghur? The Uyghur name. I don't know if that's the family name.
Yo!
We'll be calling it tomorrow at 12, or Friday. We don't do an episode tomorrow, Dan. They know what I mean.
Realized.
Well, we're not gonna paywall it. Would be fire though.
If I had to respond to all of that, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing, which is covering the fucking news.
And I hate to pull them away from the news, you know. Thank you, by the way, to our wonderful and gracious sponsor, Game Time. It's game time, baby. It is game time. I'm, of course, stressed up, guys, because you know how serious I'm taking this. I want to give a notification to Hassan, who I know is watching, and his fans. what you're witnessing me exhibiting right now is actually a neurological disorder called Tourette syndrome. I'm not addicted to drugs. You guys used to know that.
I always thought Ethan was tweaking. I didn't know he had that shit.
Okay, Asman. Well, okay, Asman Gold's audience didn't know.
I try to be honest.
I feel like you guys used to know that, especially the fans who were watching the show. But now all I see is a lot of people on Haas Twitter and his community saying that I'm on cocaine because of my neurological disorder. So I
Say also, I would like to give the opposite announcement, okay? I used to, growing up, I had a bad speech impediment. I said all my S's here, and then when I corrected it in speech therapy, my jaw goes to the side. However, little does my audience know that at the same time I started taking Vyvanse, I also took speech therapy, and I completely corrected the shift in my mouth. So now the only reason why my mouth shifts is because I'm addicted to methamphetamine, okay? So
I have this unique
you're wrong and right at the same time.
opportunity to tell you guys, if you see twitching of any kind, do not panic. My kids are safe. Do not call CPS. My kids are safe. They're not in a drug den. I promise you guys. I'll take a drug test. I'll do it right now. Who's got one? Olivia's got one.
Not it. Those goes.
I've never been as sober in my life, actually, to be honest. I haven't taken a drug in fucking, it's got to be a decade now. Decade plus going on here, probably. Well, we've got a little bit of time here at the top of the show. Oh. Okay. Okay. Oh. So there's another announcement that I want to make that's actually pretty big. You guys may have heard, I think a lot happened yesterday. I don't know if we've talked about that Harley dropped out officially. So right. Harley dropped out of Creator Clash officially. And again, Hassan, I know you're watching. Now, I think that now your good friend Ian needs you more than ever. And it's time to step in.
Based Harley, by the way. Based.
And take that title card, baby.
Do you think that his symptoms are worse because he's going through a stressful event? I think so. I think Tourette's gets exacerbated a little bit by stress, which sucks because you literally have an actual physical tell on you whenever you're stressed. I wonder if you could... How many like professional poker players have Tourette's?
This is not what podcasts
are.
Oh,
shut up. I'm trying to help you.
It's horrible.
This guy doesn't know when to shut up.
Horrible.
I'm just saying, I proved that Ian chose the right friend. But it gets even worse for Creator Clash, I'm afraid, because today... Do you want me to say it?
You can say it.
What?
This was a tough situation for everybody. And it wasn't something that any of us took lightly, least of all...
What is he going to say? I'm not promoting Creator Clash?
AB and Lena specifically. It is with great regret that we announced that Lena will not be participating in Creator Clash either.
Oh.
Yes. First off, I apologize to any of the fans who were going to see Lena. It's been a lot, and Lena's just sort of been thrown in the middle. She was kind of put in a really shitty situation, and boxing is a very serious thing, and you need your full concentration. And it was getting to a point that she was just caught in the middle of stuff, and I was afraid, and she was distracted at practice, and there's a lot to it. And
can I just say, okay, fuck all these side characters, because I think they all call me a rapist, and they hate me. But regardless of that, okay, the H3 crew are incredibly loyal people if they actually are sticking by Ethan through all of this. Because the amount of external pressure on these people has to be fucking unbelievable, insane. Because all of those crazy side snarker communities are probably putting so much pressure on these people. And the social reward, everything for flipping would be massive. So, you know, props to these people.
Yeah, she wasn't dropped. It was sort of, it wasn't fair to her opponent, Froggy, as well. Because if Lena was to post and promote, she would get shit. And if she didn't post, she's still getting shit. And it's not fair to Froggy and her experience. So, yeah, after talking out with everyone, we figured it was best if she drops.
Now, I want to make it clear. I personally think the way it played out is that she got booted. That's just my opinion. Because basically, when they dropped this content comp, they're like, oh, my God, this affects Lena? How is that possible? What? They're like, what? You don't want to post and promote the fight now? That we've declared like a holy war on your whole, on your boss's entire fucking like community? It's not just me. I mean, the community members were not fans of that video. Nor was I, by the way. And once again, to address the Hassan fans, don't do that Fortnite dance. Just take the lesson. Don't do that on camera. Mm-hmm. It's like way too late for that. Hassan, you should never. You should have told them.
He knew better.
Well, that's why he wasn't in the rest of the shots. He did one shot and he's like, this is fucking cringe, dude. You knew that video sucked, Hassan. Just admit it. All you guys know it sucked. Just admit it. Stop obfuscating.
The revolution will not be televised.
All right.
Yeah.
It will be live streamed. Sorry.
No, after speaking like with the Creator Clash team and with Lena's opponent and everything, it was sort of like a situation where she could be in it and not promote, or Ethan offered to reimburse her.
So yes, I'll be making sure that Lena's not out of pocket at all for this event. It's my, you know, I'm taking care of my people. I don't want you guys to have to fucking take a loss because of their incompetently run stupid ass event.
Which is very kind of you, and also is she. We don't. We're not happy about taking money from you either.
Out back
Yeah.
it does.
Don't worry about it. So here's first of all, here's what happened. They kind of thrust Lena into this horrible position, and they go, "Oh my God, what? What do you mean you're in a weird position?" And Lena reasonably is like, "I'm going to do the event," which I think was very brave of her to still continue through and say she's going to do it. And by the way, huge for them. They should be kissing her feet, because even though we're like at odds with Ian and the event, even to an extent, like we're probably still the only people on the internet talking about it.
True.
I still think I'm probably your biggest promoter. So the whole premise of like, oh, Lena needs to post to her social account, you know, or otherwise this fight doesn't work is stupid as fuck, because we talk about it on the show all the time. Like they could have reasonably, and by the way, they're the ones that put her in that position, so they should have reasonably been like, that's fair. You know, we apologize for the situation we put you in. That's fair. We understand.
It's horrible.
Maybe just mention it on the show a few times if you can, which by the way we're doing. And I think we would.
It's available now.
Yeah, tickets available now, guys. By the way, Harley and Lena are out, but tickets are available now.
Such a bummer. Lena literally works so hard. She's so strong. We have to get her in a fight somehow on the show.
I say we let her beat Ethan up.
I would love that.
The fuck did I do? Yeah, we were throwing some ideas around because we want Lena to be able to exhibit her maximum strength. My hairline looks crazy today, doesn't it? It came extra crispy. Sorry, I'm doing it crazy and stupid. It's not about me. All right.
I've never made fun of Ethan.
I saw a
for
picture of me when I was like 18 and I have the same hairline. They put them together side by side, same hairline. Hasan, if you're watching, I'm sorry, buddy. You only have so much.
Isn't it in their best interest to stay with Ethan, since they will get social support, but that will waver after like 1 to 2 months, and they will have a stable job, long-term prospects? I don't mean to demean them, but Ethan has proven to have staying power. Well, apparently that doesn't matter for a lot of people, so no, I will give them props.
Time left.
That I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing, which is covering the fucking news.
This isn't news, so I don't know why you're watching this. But okay, you do you, player.
War.
Anywho. Here's the thing, Hasan's audience. You guys know that I'm funnier and more entertaining. You don't have to torture yourself and watch this fucking guy scream and whine and cry and like yell at his chat.
Whoa.
He yells at his chat. He eats chicken and like he talks about the same shit every fucking day. Like, we don't do any of that. We don't eat on the air. We don't talk about the same things every day.
We don't eat on air.
And we are purely dedicated to the laughs and the entertainment every episode. So you don't have to suffer, okay?
We would
why is
never
it live?
ever eat while doing the show.
I wouldn't. And no one on the crew, I prohibit food from the set.
Yeah.
Based.
I always thought Ethan was tweaking. I didn't know he had that shit.
I guess Amsman Gold gets a pass because he doesn't understand what it's like to have a tick.
I tried saying it in the polite way.
Oh wait, he does have a tick.
He
He does have a brow tick. Okay, well that's.
Oh, wait, that's true. Wait, does Asmongold have Tourette's? Or is that just another random thing?
I've never made fun of Ethan for that.
I appreciate that.
That's great for you.
So
Dude,
anyway,
their soundboard mogs the fuck out of mine. Fuck.
Yeah, I
So-
just want to go ahead. I just wanted to end by saying I'm very proud of my wife for everything she's put into this. It's very scary. It was not easy seeing her be punched in the face.
That actually would be so
And
scary.
anyone who's still going to try to use us and try to use her to make it seem like whatever the fuck they cook up, blame me. I'm the one that heavily pushed for her. I guess. at this
blame
point,
AB. That's how I agree. Blame him for
me,
whatever complaints
blame
you
me
got.
for everything. Just fucking blame me for
I
everything.
had just on my
We like to
boom.
just blame him.
Fuck.
Well, what happened was
I feel like a loser.
they put Lena in this horrible position, and they're like, "No, you have to promote." And you guys made like a very reasonable request, being like, "I don't want to promote because if we do, our fans are going to be like, why are you doing this after what happened, right? So why should you have to piss off our fan base because of something they did?" Obviously, a lot of people are understanding, but again, it's just weird. It's just a weird, awkward thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was the Creator Collective team I was talking to. Basically, they were saying about her promoting, and I followed up with Ian, and he was not saying that to me. He was saying it was more about Froggy.
Yeah, he's a liar. He's a liar. You think that he's like Mr. Creator Clash and he doesn't know exactly what they're telling you on the phone and exactly what they're saying to Lena's opponent? It's him, and it's Anissa. He's lying. But even worse, he does a Fortnite L dance to fucking own his
That's way worse.
enemies in 2025. I know it, man. He did that. You guys saw that. Hasan's fans, I know you saw that. None of you laughed. Please tell me that. I know. Don't tempt me.
Don't do it. No, don't do it.
I'll dab on him.
Don't do it.
Don't dab. Don't show them the moves.
So they were like, okay, well, if you don't promote it, then we're gonna drop you.
Pretty much, they were mentioning that as part of the initial agreement.
Wasn't good. Yeah, they're evoking the contract. Like in the contract, it says you have to do this, and it's like, well, okay. Well, in the contract, what does it say about you fucking like calling my boss Islamophobic and thrusting me into like a civil war?
Based.
That's a really hard question.
It's not. It's an easy one. It's really easy. It's really easy. So ultimately, I guess it seemed like the inevitability was that Lena was going to drop out. Now, basically, what did they say about reimbursing her for her time? That's just obviously a no, right?
I believe that is a no.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think they're going to have a single dime to spare anyway. Harley was smart. Apparently, he got paid up front.
What? Interesting. That's fucking insane.
It is insane. That's part of what pissed Harley off is that he told them from the beginning that.
When I first came across your channel, it was during a time where calling you a dwarf or a midget was trendy, and I legit thought you were a small person creator. Thanks.
He would only do it if everyone was getting paid the same amount. He also, interestingly, maybe I shouldn't say this because I'll leave it to him, but I think he said this publicly already about the payment. He did. He said everyone needs to get paid the same amount, and they agreed. And then he was talking to his opponent, LA Beast, and he was like, oh no, I'm getting paid this much, which is like significantly more than you.
That's horrible.
Damn.
But Harley had the foresight to ask for the money up front, which is how it should be when they're asking you to fucking do all of this training. How much did you guys spend?
It's pretty much up there. I think we probably spent around 12,000.
So you guys spent $12,000.
Oh!
And like, why should you guys be expected to front the cost for that, for their fucking event? It doesn't make any sense to me. But there it is. I didn't expect them to totally screw you guys in this way. So I will be reimbursing you guys, so don't worry about the money.
Appreciate
Hasan
that.
would never.
Can I just tell you thank you?
You're welcome. Don't worry about it. It's the least I could do after tanking your entire life savings.
Thank you.
Ethan,
By the way,
I was wondering, hold on, this is important.
Mm.
You know about my sort of misadventures with the Triller stock?
Oh no. You sold.
I mean, saying I sold at a loss is maybe even underselling it.
Yeah.
There's nothing left. There's nothing left.
How?
What is the Triller stock?
Thing was, I feel a little misled.
Wait, what? You cut the video off yesterday before Harley got to the payment part? Bro, it was like an hour we listened to that, okay? I can only handle so much, okay, Nicholas Oreos.
It's
a meme.
Because
Okay.
you sort of pushed for me to do that, if I recall.
To sell?
Oh, no.
Or to buy?
To buy.
When did I push you to buy Triller stock?
You did. You
How?
did. Well,
You said you did. You kind of just got to own it.
we'll look at the tapes later.
Okay. I don't
But
know
my
why
point
you could put
being
that
is,
on
like,
me.
if we're in the giving mood,
Oh, you want me to? How much do you down?
well, 100%. Well, maybe not 100.
What in monetary value?
Oh,
CrowdStrike looking healthy.
something to the effect. I mean, it's
Balancing
for
out
you,
those
it's probably
NVIDIA
like
losses.
pocket change. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it would be no
don't
big
be
deal.
so sure. How much is it? We
How are we
talking
doing?
6, 7 figures?
No, not 7. Not 7.
Okay. Well, 6 is a big range.
That's absurd. 7 figures.
6 is a huge range.
Yeah, it's probably in the low 6s.
Yeah,
Low 6s.
I'm not paying you back for that. You got listen. I as a licensed financial advisor.
Yeah, well, that's why I fucking
did
listened to
not
you, and I found out
advise
later that that isn't even true. So
I did not advise you, okay? And please do not register with. Do not file a complaint with the FCC or whatever, whoever does the stock
Why?
exchange.
They're not enforcing
Don't
shit.
talk to them, Dan.
They don't give a fuck.
Advises moms.
Well, that's sorry. I'm sorry you lost your money, Dan. But on the high side, on the upside here, the stock market. I mean, it's having a little rougher today, but it's coming back, AB.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is.
I sold.
just loaded up and it's at a loss. We're back, baby.
Well, dude, it was down 10%. Now it's at 3.3. You know. What I mean?
Down 6% on NVIDIA. Up 50% on CrowdStrike. God damn. Hell yeah.
Ugh. What did you sell at? Was it around here or was it lower?
It was around here. Yeah.
Don't sell, AB. As your financial advisor, I gave you one rule. Diamond hands. That's the Twin Peaks Price is Right.
Seder is scheduled for 4 p.m., by the way. Oh, well, fuck. Back to this.
Why, so I've gone and run these numbers working with the people who are modeling the Inflation Reduction Act's build out.
Okay.
If you look at where the IRA's money is going,
Yeah.
if you are looking at deployment of green energy infrastructure or advanced manufacturing for green energy, that money is going majority to red states. They are building more of it.
Uh-oh.
If you look at money, the subsidies to buy things, to
Now
buy
remember, she was like, what about green energy? And the Koch brothers.
the end products, right, to buy an electric vehicle, that goes more to blue states because we buy more, maybe not any more Teslas, but at one time, Teslas in California and New York. And so this, to me, there's no doubt that the politics are as you describe them nationally. And there's also no doubt that what you would assume from that politics is a much more rapid build out of green energy infrastructure in blue states than red. And that is not what we see. I find it, I said this in the introduction to the book, this book is not aimed at the right because they don't share my goal on decarbonization. But then trying to understand.
Do you think using a lot of bots on a kilo, is it a kilo or a kilo? Do you think it's unethical? I feel like this would be the most ethical place to use bots.
And why Texas and Georgia have been such incredible success stories from the perspective of the IRA, and a bunch of the states that are much more aligned with its politics have been much more difficult. That then requires some untangling. And Shoykat, you focus very much on this. I'm curious how you think about that.
Yeah, I'd say, well, first of all, I mean, I do agree that, money in politics is this hugely enervating
Yes.
force, right? But I think
even if we got rid of money in politics and all the other forces that kind of get in the way, I don't think our politicians on their own would do things at the scale. Even looking at Texas versus California, people are building in Texas because in a completely, nothing else going on sort of scenario, there's fewer rules in Texas, it's cheaper to build in Texas, so you build in Texas. But that's not going to build out enough clean energy to make any sort of dent, actually, in the global problem of tackling climate change. And, I think the money in politics and all that just supports the general sort of feeling that our politicians have and this trend that they've had of trying to do less and less. I think one of the really bad parts of money in politics is that politicians spend all their time calling big donors for money, and they think that's their job. And they're really confused by the job of actually trying to build stuff, and make things happen. But I think, there's an interview with... I
want to watch Destiny watch the Trump interview very badly. We'll get there.
Hassan Khan, I worked on the CHIPS Act on All Bots yesterday.
Bot debuff on a kilo isn't a big deal. Wait, there's a bot debuff here? What? Is that true?
And he was talking about the stuff that actually got in the way of the CHIPS Act, right? And a big part of it was trying to negotiate with all the different special interests and groups that had stuff to say. And he said that's fine. That's an important part of the process. And again, Europe does this as well. But there's no real...
And they've lost semiconductor manufacturing.
Yeah, that's fair. But there's no real focus from the up top. There's no political leadership that was saying, we got to get this fab built, right? I was saying that's actually the overwhelming priority here. And, I think what happens when you create a political moment that's bigger than any of these forces, you can actually blow past it. And we're kind of seeing that with Trump and tariffs right now.
Dark abundance.
Yeah, dark abundance. Because, I'm sure all the businesses are calling up Trump right now being like, what the hell are you doing with these tariffs? And they're calling all their Congress people and senators. But Trump's created such a political moment and a reality within the Republican Party where you've just got to go along with the tariffs. The Republican Congress people can say, sorry, this is just too popular in the party. My hands are tied. I've got to go with the president, right?
Yeah. Let me ask you about money in politics. I think this is an important question. I would support functionally the strongest money in politics regulations and laws anybody could imagine. I would repeal Buckley v. Vallejo. I don't think money is speech in politics. I think we've been on the wrong path on this for 30, 40 years. I completely believe that it's enervating. I believe it leads to levels of cynicism and distrust that even if you take out every other bad thing it's doing is complete toxicity in the veins
Thank
of the
God.
politics.
She's like, yes.
So I agree with all this.
Good.
I also think when I look at individual issues, when we say money in politics, when we say corporate power, when we say concentrated power, we make a fractious plural into a singular. Money in politics often lines up on many different sides of an issue. So I was having a conversation recently with very big money, like not a group you would love me talking to, Zephyr, that had been trying to finance now for some decades major, well, not major in terms of the build out, but major in terms of the significance, pipelines that would bring clean energy from one place to another. I'm not aligned with them on everything, but I'm aligned with them on building these pipelines because we got to get this power from the place where we are generating it as clean power to where we can power homes in New York City. I want it to happen, and it has been decades. And that's a very common story on transmission lines. On transmission lines, these are built by private companies. They are financed privately for the most part. These companies want this to happen. They end up facing a lot of other fights. Now, some of those fights on the other side are also money. Some of them, sometimes even fossil fuel interests. But it's not just one thing. I think something I have come to believe is that, and this is maybe more sort of Shotout's perspective, that over time we just sort of flipped the default. We flipped the default to make it easier to veto, easier to stop than to create. Now that empowers money that wants to stop and makes it hard for money that wants to create. It empowers groups that want to stop and makes it hard for groups that want to create. To me, it's not that money should be in politics, but as a sort of monocausal explanation. Money is often on many different sides of the political fight, including climate change. The entire theory of the IRA is leveraging private dollars to build a huge green energy infrastructure build out, right? We are trying to align the markets alongside political vision.
True.
Do you agree with the premise that in any given instance, money is often fractious? It's not one thing or trying to achieve one thing.
No. Money is always on the bad guys' side, and we are the good guys. So fuck you, Ezra.
Some of it may be on the side of a project you like, some of it against.
What I believe is that we should not have centralized corporate power governing our system. That there is a real threat. I don't want to be.
She just can't engage. Can she engage with any question ever? Is she capable of it?
Any given instance. I don't want to just be on the abstract.
No, I'm not. And what that means is that I don't think it's good to have oligarchs fighting each other, and that a system of like two oligarchs being on a different side of a thing is still a deeply broken system, and that we should recognize that brokenness. And the example I would use is, from the left, think of the oligarchs we were embracing in just 8 years ago. Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg. That we're aligned with them on this, so we should stay aligned with them and make sure we actually, the Democratic Party building up their power in order to, in that case, take on Donald Trump. But the truth is that if you engage in enhancing the political power of oligarchs because you have a short-term alignment on an issue, it will end up actually degrading the political process over time.
I don't believe, even if I would like to get money out of politics, we're going to get money out of politics in a full-on way and end oligarchy on the pace we need to decarbonize. We have to build things in the next couple of years. Donald Trump is now the biggest problem with this, but nevertheless, even if Kamala Harris had won the election, we would still be in this condition. The theory you offered earlier was that money slows politics down.
Yes.
And what I'm saying, what I've seen in many things I've covered, money sometimes wants to speed things up. It sometimes wants to slow it down. It sometimes wants to build. It sometimes doesn't. There are developers that want to build housing. There are other money.
See, Ezra wants to take an actual view of, okay, well, what does money in politics actually do? Let's have an actual conversation, because money in politics is not always bad, like as a rule. And money in politics doesn't always push for the exact same thing. Money can function in a lot of different ways. There are probably some examples of money moving in politics in ways that we would consider not only things that we personally agree with, we would even say it's socially good or desirable. Like we want there to be people funding awareness for climate change, for instance. That would be like an example of maybe good money in politics. And then there might be ways that money in politics can be bad, or things advocating for things that we might consider socially harmful, right? Hold on one second. Jesus, dropping lawsuits off every day over here. Just kidding.
Moneyed interests that maybe don't, right? Caruso next to his mall. And so that there's something here that it's not just the fault of money in politics, because there's money on all sides.
Oh, there's just money works on different sides in politics, and it's, it's not always good. It's not always bad. It's not always socially good. It's not always socially bad. It's just be aware of that.
Next to his mall. And so that there's something here that it's not just the fault of money in politics, because there's money on all sides of the issues, that there's something else going on.
Oh, and this is also my biggest complaint when it comes to this like money in politics analysis. The reason why I think it's such a corrosive viewpoint to have is that if there are other things at play and you only view it as money in politics is the problem, you lose the ability to have that analysis. You just can't. You're not capable of engaging in the analysis, because the only frame that you're willing to acknowledge is money in politics is causing all the social harms or ills or whatever, and that's all you can see. And I think that's damaging. That's not good. There are other issues that we have in our system.
That if we want to be able to build these things fast, we're going to have to take it at a systemic level, and the interests around that are going to be fractious and not unified. We have to make choices.
So the deep difference is, I believe, in fact, what I care about so much is I believe in the future. I believe in dynamism. I believe in a country in which people's full selves are brought to bear.
Good for you.
I believe in a far more equal country where we actually stand up for working people. And I believe that in order to stand up for working people, we need a dynamic country. And I absolutely believe that the biggest block to that is centralized power. And that in individual fights, you can say, oh, I think this moment of centralized power might force things through, but it will fundamentally lead to highly concentrated, top-down, calcified power in the long term. And
why not just get rid of it and then go on to the next issue? Because you might spend all of your effort getting rid of a thing that's the overall magnitude might be really low, might just not have that much of an impact. And you wouldn't really do this in anything. I think when you're giving personal advice or business advice to people, I want to say there's like a clever, quick, it's not the 80-20 thing. When you're looking to make improvements in like a business or in yourself, oftentimes you're looking for, it's like low cost, high impact things. So for instance, you might have, I don't even know if I can think of examples on this. Maybe in like a workplace, your employees could be made significantly happier if you just had like heating installed in the building. And maybe there's other ways to make your employees happy, like offering a low cost daycare center, offering a better overall health benefits package, offering a better one-on-one meetings with bosses, right? These things might all be nice, but the heating option is straightforward, it's easy, and it might like dramatically improve the lives of every employee. Maybe you work in a colder place, right? So you would start with that. You'd say, okay, well, this is the cheapest one, and this is like, there's a huge payoff immediately, so let's invest in that first. You wouldn't look for these kind of edge case, more esoteric things or more on the outer perimeter things and make huge investments when you don't even know how much it's going to impact things. You just wouldn't do that.
Example I want to use, you and I first met over 20 years ago when I was working for Howard Dean.
And I was living in...
Why the all or nothing mindset? Also, government isn't a business. I'm sorry, I can't tell if you're retarded or not. I never said government was a business, and I never gave the impression of an all or nothing mindset.
A flop house in Vermont.
Yes. And I don't blame Howard for this because I don't think he even knew about it, right? We wanted to put out a new, here we are, a new dynamic campaign. We wanted to put out a new open source policy, and somebody's like, just run it by the General Counsel of Microsoft. right, first. And I was new to politics. I was totally shocked, right? That is a veto. That is a slowing down. That's a slowing down in that particular campaign. Those little veto points are happening in every congressional campaign, in every state house, and it's that kind of veto. So you bring in, one of our problems on the left is we said, let's align with the big money, like the Reid Hoffmans.
Okay, I'm so sorry. And I'm not trying to challenge you. I wish you need to challenge a little bit your understanding of money. Money is not always a bad thing to have represented, okay? Even if the money in politics is good or bad, depending on the issue, doesn't really matter if you are against people with money having extra influence just because they got money to spend while others don't. I'd rather be against money in politics on principle. Voting and gathering hundreds or thousands of people for protests should be the only ways to sway politicians. But that's not true because money represents a lot of stuff. It represents people's desires or time that they want to invest in a thing, like you get paid money for working a job, and it could represent like a financial interest that could be beneficial for all the people as well. Say, for instance, say you want to vote on what do you want. Let's say there's a huge piece of land up for development in some city or on the outskirts of some city, and you've got 20 people who are massively in favor of investing a ton of money into developing it for some purpose. And say you've got like 100 people on the other end who are like, nah, we're in favor of developing this for, to make it a big park or something. Well, let's say that the people that want to develop it, into like a mall or something like that, let's say they're willing to invest, $50 million in the project. And let's say the people on the other end who are like, oh, we think it should be a park, but we're not going to vote for a tax increase and we're not going to fund this at all anyway. So it's just going to sit there and be undeveloped. Like in that case, like you kind of want the financial interest to speak a little bit. So because these people are at least willing to put their money where their mouth is, right? So money is not necessarily bad. It can be, but other stuff can be bad too. It's not bad or good. It's just there are pros and cons to everything. You just need to be aware of those things.
And then Reid Hoffmans basically says, we can't have Lena Khan's dynamic use of government. She's somebody you would love. She was willing to break eggs to get things done, to cut through the bureaucracy to actually achieve things. And you have...
Yes, but what about the times when you don't agree on the issue? That's the main issue here. I mean, then it depends on the issue. I don't know. It depends on the issue. It depends on what you're not agreeing on.
Have Reid Hoffman and other big, wealthy tech billionaires saying, we are a veto point because of big money. You can't talk about those dynamic things. In the campaign, maybe you should get rid of Lena Khan. So I think you're undervaluing what happens when you actually embrace big power for individual projects. They become veto power. They become significant veto power elsewhere.
So, Shoykot, this makes me think about your leadership point. One of the things I've observed covering a lot of fights in Washington, I would say over time, the leadership of the Democratic Party became less and less willing to offend almost anybody who it considered in its coalition. Its coalition was vast, right? Its coalition stretching from Reid Hoffman and the General Counsel of Microsoft on the one side to all kinds of like environmental justice groups on the other side.
What are the 5 questions you want a Palestinian supporter to answer? Who started the war in 47? Who fired the first shots? It was Palestinians. They would never admit that. The Nakba, what did that happen at the back of? It was a war between all the Arab states and Israel. They won't answer that. When you say you want a one-state solution, does that mean a one-state solution with an unlimited right of return for Palestinians? They will say yes. Does that mean that Jews are going to live there as a minority? They have to say yes. And should Jews be trusted, or would Jews trust Arabs to live there as a minority and not be genocided or evicted when they were evicted and kicked out of every other surrounding state? They might say something like, well, in that case, the Jews should go back to Europe or to Brooklyn. You can fight there on the historical grounds of, well, most Jews in Israel now are from other countries in the Middle East, so that doesn't work, number one. Or two, you can say, why can't the Palestinians go back to any of the other 49 Muslim states or 20 or so Arab states on the planet? Why do they have to have Israel? I'd be curious to hear them talk about that. Yeah, I don't know. There's a few questions around. There's just like a lot of popular narratives that are historically easily defeatable that I've never seen like pro-Pali advocates be forced to go up against. But yeah, I don't know.
And I'm not saying literally no one ever got offended, but...
Pretty bad take. Destiny wants to equate lobbying to making sound financial decisions. You're banned. I don't know. You're just retarded. I'm sorry. Fuck. There has to be better opposition to things I'm saying. I've never said that money necessarily makes sound financial decisions. It just advocates for itself. Financial interests advocate for their own financial interests. It's sound in that they're advocating for their own financial interests and they'll make money out of it. That might be socially beneficial in some cases. It might be socially harmful in other cases. You just have to consider that. I don't know why the most one-dimensional dipshit takes show up in my chat so much. Jesus.
As I sort of like watched the procession from like the Obama era to the sort of Hillary Clinton campaign to the Biden-Harris era, and saw this in Congress too, it felt like as a matter of the governance culture. It wanted to run everything by everybody. And not literally anybody getting upset was an emergency, but the leadership became less and less tolerant of anybody being upset. Everybody had to get a little bit. You were in Congress. You helped. You ran AOC's first campaign, so you were part of the Let's Piss People Off caucus. I'm curious, one, if what I just said feels true to you, and two, what your sort of account of it is, like what you saw from it, and what you think is behind that culture. It seems much more dominant now on the left than on the like break every single egg of the global economy, right?
Yeah, I think there's, it's not just about not pissing people off. I think it's a complete abdication of responsibility of leading. I think it's a lack of realizing that we need new ideas and we need an actual vision for how to do stuff. And in the Democratic Party, because it's not just, groups on the left. Like I went to a training when I was in Congress. That was a training on how to get ideas from corporate lobbyists, right? I tweeted about it and I pissed off some people. But it's really hard to push new ideas.
What did they tell you in that training? How do you get ideas?
It was very matter of fact.
Don't they come to you? I would assume they come to you.
They
with
do
ideas.
come to you, but in the training, it was like, if you're writing a bill, here are the people you can contact to get expertise, right? Similar to what you got on the Dean campaign. And, I think it's this complete abdication of responsibility of your role to actually put out solutions that will solve real problems. Like the culture is more, we'll figure out ideas from everybody that's around us and kind of cobble it together into this Frankenstein monster. In general, like the pipeline example you brought up is a really interesting one, right? Because I think when you abdicate responsibility from actually pushing for new ideas and solutions, what you're saying is the interest groups, which I think often, as you're pointing out, Zephyr, are the big corporate interests, they're going to fight it out. So in the case of the pipelines you're talking about, I'm sure there's interest groups on both sides, so 20 years later we'll come to some resolution. But in the case of natural gas pipelines, we streamlined all that, right? We put permitting under FERC. We made it happen super fast. We have 3 million miles of natural gas pipeline in this country right now. We built it super fast because there wasn't really a big enough opposing interest group. And so that's sort of what I see happening in the Democratic Party is there's a real resistance to putting out actual solutions and putting out real ways to solve these problems.
True.
And just deciding that we're going to take ideas from everyone. And I agree with Zephyr that tends to be the corporate powers that have more influence there.
That is in there, but I think has gotten less attention. But we have, over time, in my view, denuded the state of expertise. Members of Congress have, I think it's shocking how small the staff of a House member who represents like a highly populous district and maybe runs an important committee really is. And I'm not saying that's the only reason. They outsource a huge amount of their thinking and their work to corporate interests, to nonprofits. But there's this whole theory in political science called legislative subsidy, which is that the real power of lobbying, or one of its real sources of power, is it is the provider of expertise. And not only is it the provider of expertise, it is a provider of expertise from your former colleagues who you liked. They leave a congressional office because now they've got 3 kids, and maybe one of the kids is in private school, or all of them are, or whatever it might be. We've held down congressional salaries, we've held down congressional staff sizes. That's all like high polling populist policy. And then people go into various forms of the private sector or the lobbying sector and sell back what they know to their former colleagues. And in my version of abundance, where state capacity is very big, we need to fund the government itself a lot more. Like, this is where I'm not a Doge person at all. I'm not a Doge person on a lot of levels, but my view is they want to destroy state capacity. Their view is that everybody be more effective and productive in the private sector. Whereas I would like people working for Congress to be both more numerous and make a lot more money, because we should have much of the very best expertise in the world help.
One thing that's frustrating when I hear you frustrated with the left is you seem to hand-wave the systemic issues they bring up. I hand-wave systemic issues because systemic issues is a catch-all for I don't want to get in the weeds. If there's a systemic issue, quantify that, give an appropriate magnitude for how much it impacts us, and then give a realistic way to quantifiably reduce whatever the systemic impact is. It's not enough to just say white supremacy. And then that's it. Oh, okay, well, I guess there's no argument to be had. Capitalism. Oh, okay. Financial interests and donors. Okay. Well, how do we fix this? Ban all of it. Well, okay, cool. Thanks. Thanks for chatting, I guess. Thank you for the suggestion. We'll go back to doing nothing.
Helping Congress figure out its decarbonization policies, and helping, in California, we should have the best rail engineers in the world helping on a major high-speed rail build-out. How do you think about that outsourcing of all these functions in the absence of in-house capacity?
It's a major problem. It's a major problem. And that's why, as you get into lower levels of government, lobbyist capture is even higher. Like in California, state government's worse than it is in Congress because they have even less funding. And, I think if you look, what people actually want is not what Doge is doing. They want effective government. And effective government happens if you have either a very well-paid civil service, as they do in Singapore or Finland or any of these countries that have effective government. But in America, the tough part of that is you're competing against, Google salaries and all these high-paid salaries. And so I think one way you do that is you do increase salaries and fund this stuff, but you also have to make it exciting. You have to make it something where the people working in government are actually feeling like they're making an impact. They often do, but the people I talk to who the most want to try to fix how fast government goes are the people who work in government. It's people working in the State Department and Treasury, wherever.
Because it's very radicalized. It's very very underreported.
Yeah, it's because they're going in there and they're making a real sacrifice. All these people could be making $500,000 at a lobbyist firm, but instead they're taking a huge pay cut to do something good. One of the things I learned when I was in Congress was if you're a former member of Congress, you can be on the House floor. So what do lobbyists do? They hire former members of Congress so they can put votes on the House floor. They're not supposed to. It's technically against the rules, but come on.
How do you think about this question?
First of all, I think it's huge, and I think the examples you use of we're just outsourcing this thinned state, this sort of thinned and enervated state, is a very significant problem. And I just want to use some counterexamples about a direction we can go, which may help you understand sort of why I think there's such possibility in the anti-monopoly movement. Because a lot of what happened in the anti-monopoly movement is we started actually learning how business actually works. We're learning how the John Deere actually limits repairs. Returning to the center of democratic politics, an understanding of what happens with inhalers, what happens with fire trucks, what happens with the franchise system, asking a set of questions that frankly we didn't ask for 30 years. What is happening in the vast bulk of the American economy? What is life like for working people on a day-to-day level? What is life like?
You can ask these questions, but you have to have good conversations about them as well. I don't know anything about this inhaler issue, but I know that for a while, there was a big deal that came up about EpiPens. And it turns out that you can make an EpiPen for, I think, significantly cheaper than the brand that makes them today. And so people were asking, what's going on? Why are EpiPens, so expensive? Is it just because of monopolies? Because this one company, makes EpiPens. And the reason why EpiPens were so expensive is because when you're talking about medical stuff, your safety tolerances or your failure rates have to be very, very, very low. And to an ordinary person, if I tell you that I need you to give me a measurement of, I need a measurement of 5 gallons, okay? That to give me a measurement of 5 gallons for some, for water is something that a person can probably do with a consumer scale. Okay, I need 5 gallons of water for this project. Get a consumer scale. You can weigh it out, and you're fine. If I tell you that I need 5.00 gallons, well, now you might have to buy, those. The only thing I've ever aware of this in is for drugs, the little gram measuring scales. Now you have to buy more specialized equipment to measure this. You probably can't measure to 0.00 on just on a consumer scale that you'd weigh yourself on. I know gallons is technically not a unit of weight. And then if I tell you that I need something like 5.00000 gallons, okay, well now we might need equipment that costs tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to get, and maybe even a special environment or a room to measure something like this out. Because the specificity that you're looking for is much higher than what a consumer scale could give, what a prosumer or some expensive piece of equipment would give. Now we're getting to way more specialized areas. When you're looking at EpiPens, you can't have what would, for a consumer product, a fail rate of 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 10,000 might be acceptable, but for an EpiPen, that might be somebody dying. So when you're looking for a failure rate of 1 out of 1,000,000 or something significantly lower, the whole process of producing and manufacturing and testing is going to be a lot more intricate. There's a reason why you don't want to just buy an off-brand EpiPen. But that was just for the EpiPen example. I don't know for the inhaler thing what they're talking about. I haven't read anything about that. But.
What is happening in the vast bulk of the American economy? What is life like for working people on a day-to-day level? What is life like for a farmer? And so some of the areas where you saw the most active...
Right. Sound so generous. Thank you.
Is everybody saying even though Sam Seder's not going to be on for 5 minutes?
I'm saving this. One sec here. Yeah. Oh God.
Good
okay.
job, dipshits. Now I'm not going back to this for 5 minutes, even if it starts so.
For working people on a day-to-day level. What is life like for a farmer? And in the vast bulk of the American economy, what is life like for working people on a day-to-day level? What is life like for a farmer? And so some of the areas where you saw the most active government in the Biden administration, and Biden administration was not coherent on this, right? There's different departments. You saw Pete Buttigieg, who came in, was willing to, break some eggs, get things done, stopped the first airline merger in 30 years, really got into the weeds of how transportation supply chains work. And we had the most successful air transit summer, in years in 2024, effective, dynamic.
And everything's been going great with air travel ever since.
I think he did a great job.
Yes, it's not people who did it.
Right. I think he did a great job with the DOT. And so what I want to say is its capacity, its desire, its drive. I think the drive comes from a vision that you are standing up for working people against the big airlines. That is actually a motivating drive, and it's a politically motivating drive. But the kind of expertise we want matters. It's not just expertise generally. It's, I think, where the Democratic Party really should go is understanding how did we allow the greatest geographic inequality in American history in the last 20 years, where places like Utica, New York are totally left behind. Like, that's weird and strange, and we should treat it like weird and strange. How did we allow
the off-brand EpiPens are still FDA approved, right? Isn't that sufficiently safe? I don't know if there are off-brand EpiPens. I'm not sure. I think that was people's big complaints.
Diapers to get so expensive when we should have, like real innovations in eco diapers instead of just this kind of incredibly expensive, price gouging, frankly, during the pandemic. Real expertise and expertise in the nature of business. And I think sometimes people think of anti-monopoly as anti-business, and we're like, no, we're the first pro-business real movement in a long time. It's not the choke point businesses that, like you note in other contexts. The problem of choke points is they innovate. Like, why even bother?
To be fair, EpiPens are way more expensive in the U.S. than other countries. Is there a reason for this, or are companies price gouging in the USA? So I wouldn't call it price gouging per se. This is my understanding of regional pricing. I know most of this because of how it works for video games. I'm pretty sure the concept is the same when it comes to other goods and services as well. But what happens is when you're investing in research and development to make a particular product, there's a huge initial investment that you have to make. Let's say it takes $5 million worth of research in order to create, an AutoBlow 2000, okay? So you put $5 million of research into it, and you create your first auto sucker, all right? That auto sucker, maybe it costs you $200 in parts and labor and all that bullshit. That auto sucker, the first one you make for $200, that costs you $5,200,000 to make because you had $5 million in R&D, you made your first one, so $5,200,000 to make one. If you make a second one for $200, so now you spent $5,400,000, right? Well, that second one, even though it cost you $200 more, just brought down the average cost per auto sucker by half, right? Now it costs on average $2,500,200 a piece. And every time you make another one for only $200 more, your average cost per unit goes down because of your you're spreading out that initial R&D cost by selling more and more units. One of the things that manufacturers look to when they try to sell products is they'll look at other markets that they can sell products to, and they'll look at the prices that they think those markets can support. Now, you might never create an auto suck for Poland because the people there just can't afford all of the R&D. But if you're already creating the auto suck in America, then maybe you can sell it for $50 in Poland. You would have never made it in Poland for $50 because it wouldn't have recouped all your costs. But you could make it in the USA and then sell it to Poland for cheaper, and then you just make more money basically because your cost to create each one is low anyway, and it was the initial R&D that you're trying to recoup. I think this is the reason why things can be cheaper in other countries, even though it's more expensive in some markets, because it has to do with what the market can bear and what manufacturers are looking to get back from their initial R&D costs. Yeah.
Make a new eco diaper if you're just going to get crushed.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, because if we actually embark on these big missions and make it exciting enough to be in government, we don't want to just be anti-people who know how to do stuff. Like when we did the World War II mobilization, the guy who ran a big part of it was this guy, Bill Knudsen, who was actually the CEO of GM, right? But he had come up as an engineer, through the factory floor. He understood how that whole economy worked, and that was why we were able to organize all the other CEOs and the entire economy to do the war production. Previously, FDR almost hired like a banker, who did.
Yeah, you're waiting 2 minutes for the Sam Seder talk because too many of you fucking retards spam me to go watch. So now we're not watching until 4:04.
Engineer, through the factory floor. He understood how that whole.
You know what? Never mind. Actually, you're lucky.
Okay, fine. I will talk about channel. Yes.
I want to just start.
I feel like it'd be an easy
Hey.
thing to just.
I feel like it's real for sure.
So is the argument that European markets can only bear a fraction of the cost of these products? The argument is that they wouldn't be able to bear the full cost, or they have some regulation that makes it so they're bringing the cost down. So arguably, they're getting value from the American consumer spending more on it.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the show, Mr. Sam Seder.
Oh my God, it's Sam Seder. What a nightmare.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
How have you been, Sam, since we ruined Steven Crowder's life together? Nice to see you
I've
again.
been feeling very badly for him.
Yes,
over the years.
it's a tragic loss of a great career and so much potential.
Yes, it is. Hey, are we live now?
We are live on the H3 channel, yes.
I want to just start by sort of apologizing in that I sent you a DM on Twitter 6 months ago or something. I was just going through to find out, and then I just realized you're no longer on Twitter.
Yeah.
So that explains why I didn't hear back.
He may no. Yeah, I didn't see it. I wish I would have, but honestly, I don't know what to do because I want to.
Wait, he's not on Twitter? Who's the guy I've been DMing and sending pictures of myself to on the H3H3 Twitter account?
get off Twitter, but also it's kind of a pain because Twitter is the way that like I would reach out and speak to most people. But I also don't want to be on a platform that's like owned and perpetuates basically like Nazi shit. So
yeah, this was yes, I understand that.
Yeah,
but I just wanted you to know I did reach out, and it was on me not to realize that. I just assumed he didn't want to respond. But
okay, well, that's nice to know that you reached out. I appreciate that. And the reason, I mean, obviously, people have been pushing for this conversation. I don't know if you know like the whole lore of it, the background of it.
I don't. I mean, this is all I know is that Hasan reached out to me sometime. I mean, I got in touch with you October 24th, and I said that I was meaning to reach out for a couple of weeks. So I assume it was sometime in early October. And I thought we were just going to do this off air. But my understanding is that you and he were getting into it, and you felt like because he wasn't Jewish, he didn't have a perspective on this, and that's why he suggested that you speak to me.
No, that is not true. I hope Ethan doesn't forget what sparked this. It was that Hasan wanted to cite literally one minority org in the United States, like as in they were a minority of Jews, called like, what was it, like Jews for Peace or something, Jewish Voice for Peace, that don't represent all Jews. And Ethan was bringing up, it was a little ridiculous to cite them. And then Hasan was like, well, let me find a better Jew for you to talk to. But
I don't speak for all Jews, just to be clear.
Right.
I speak for only for myself as a in any form.
Well,
whatsoever.
Sam, allow me to speak for all Jews, if I may, today.
Please.
No, but actually, I mean, that's a total mischaracterization, which is kind of my problem with Hasan, which we can get into if you want. We don't even have to talk about Hasan. But basically, what I told him was that I was citing polling data that shows that about 70 to 80% of diaspora Jews have some kind of positive feelings towards the state of Israel. And he was disagreeing with me. And I mean, this is available by polls, readily available by Pew Research just last month, showing that. And I don't know if if you agree with that or not, I can pull it up, but 72% of diaspora Jews have some type of at least positive feelings about the state of Israel. I was stating that fact to him, and he was saying that I was wrong. And I said, who are you to talk about this? I did not say that I only listen to Jewish people, which is a little bit of presumptuous and a little insane.
No, I don't think that's not what I took him to say. But I mean, Hasan that's irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that I haven't seen that poll. I've seen ones that have said that they have a connection. They feel a connection, either strong or somewhat, which is different than positive per se. So but regardless, I mean, I think if I don't know your upbringing at all, but I mean certainly my upbringing.
Destiny, you said Palestinians started the war, and I was just correcting you that it was the Arab states and most of the local Arabs. Palestinians didn't take part. You're wrong. Most of the Arab states joined in 48 after Israel declared independence, but in 47. It was the Palestinians living in places like Jerusalem that started that initial war. The 47 conflict started off as a civil war between Arabs or Palestinians and the Yishuv, the Jewish people there, the pre-Israel people. And then after in 48, I think in June, May, when did Israel declare independence? That's when the rest of the Arab states joined in.
My Hebrew education was, I would say, 1/3 Holocaust. And I'm older. And so this was, in the 70s. 1/3 into the 80s, 1/3 Holocaust, 1/3 Israel, 1/3 Hebrew, Hebrew and Jewish culture. And I certainly feel a strong connection to Israel, but I wouldn't call it positive these days.
Sure. I think what the poll attempts to is basically, if you ask Hasan or a lot of people on the left,
May 14th, okay.
I think an emotional attachment is the way to describe it. So it's like if you think
I certainly have an emotional attachment, and it's not, but it's not. I wouldn't describe it as positive.
This isn't the one, is it, Dan? There's the one that shows 73% of diaspora Jews. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Regardless, basically, I want to flesh out my ideas, my thoughts, because I'm being characterized by Hasan and a lot of his cohorts as being, a Zionist, being pro-Israel, being an Israel apologist, being a genocide supporter, being a baby killer, being married to a baby killer, et cetera, right? My wife is Israeli. I don't know if you know that.
Notice he didn't deny it.
So basically, I would like to just take the opportunity to explain my ideas, what I think about Israel, and you can tell me what you think, because apparently I will only listen to other Jewish people. So finally, I can speak to someone whose opinion matters to me. So thank you, as the official sanctioned Jewish man, Sam Seder, everybody. 100% Ashkenazi. You ever taken one of those?
I haven't, but I'm quite sure I have some Sephardic Jewish ancestry too. So I would mix.
That's good.
Vilnius and Hungary, I think.
Good for you. I think that's always a good thing. Hey, my friend, I'm 99.3%. So.
Damn.
That's my.
All right.
That's where my authority comes from.
I'll take your word for it.
So at any rate, let me start here by showing you a little context.
Oh, let me also just say, I got about an hour.
Okay, great. Well, I'll just get into it then. Here it is. Not that it matters, but okay, whatever. So let's start here. Let's start with the little icebreaker here. I know we're both fans of Tim Pool. Okay, let's just enjoy this image together. Tim Pool recently at a wedding. And can you see that?
Did he get married?
Well, I think he's attending a wedding.
Okay.
And he's very formally dressed, except he appears to be wearing a beanie.
I would. I'm aware of his beanie attachment.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought this was a fine look for our good friend Tim Pool there. Very good.
Nice suit.
Yeah. So well, let me ask you this: what have you kind of like? heard about me? Because I mean, I know that your colleagues have an
I got to
opinion.
be honest with you. I
don't know shit. I don't know anything.
I have not heard much.
I've heard your name.
I have like, you know, the only thing I really saw that came up in any of my mentions
Hassan
on Blue
begging
Sky,
me to set you
also on
straight.
Blue Sky, is just this issue about talking to me, and I had presumed that was it, but I don't, you know, like, look, from my perspective, I'm not, you know, and I know that there's been, you know, you mentioned in the email that there's been a lot of grief that you have taken, and I know that other people have also taken grief on all sides of this. And, you know, the personal aspects of this, and, you know, I don't believe that people, I don't actively attempt to deplatform people. I don't think people should do that. I don't think people should be swatted.
I'm not up to on the Sam Seder lore. Are we expecting this to be a good faith convo? I don't know Sam Seder's position on Israel. My expectation would be pretty dumb. However, I seriously doubt he's going to call Ethan like a full-on pro-genocidal Zionist simp. But I don't know. I actually don't know if I've heard Sam Seder talk about Israel much. He probably is like I don't actually know. I don't know if he thinks they're committing a genocide or not. I'm not sure.
Or tried to be fired or whatever, or you know, have CPS sicked on them or any of that. I mean, I just don't think that's appropriate. I mean, I'm more interested in talking about my relationship to Zionism and my perspective on what Israel is doing and
clip. So
you know, what
I've been
is
actually
happening in
talking
Gaza.
about my.
Oh boy!
I totally agree. Let's just talk about the facts. Let me start by showing you this clip. So I've been actually talking about my feelings on the Israel-Gaza Palestinian dispute situation for a long time. I lived in Israel for 5 years as well when I was with my wife early on. Here's my position right after October 7th, and you can tell me if you have any if you have any comments on any of my positions here. But this was posted on. This was from our episode a few days after October 7th.
Oh no. I bet Hassan phrased this as in like, hey, can you go talk to my friend Ethan from H3H3 because he is like really confused or doesn't understand something. That's probably how Hassan phrased this to Sam Seder. So Sam's like, yeah, I don't have no problem with that. When in reality, I think Ethan is probably looking for Sam to just say like, hey, you don't think I'm like fucking pro-genocide in this clip or anything, right? And now Sam is in this like really weird world probably where he doesn't realize. I wonder if he's realized, yeah, that they're basically both leaning on Sam Seder's opinion here to figure out, does Ethan support genocide or not?
Yeah. Liars and bad faith weirdos. So here's what I'll say about Israel, okay? Listen, since the first time I've said it, and I'll say it many more times, the cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs, okay? They're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal, okay? He's made a coalition of the most like radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis. And they're hell-bent on genocide, frankly, overtly. They've committed tons of war crimes in Gaza, including the killing of children, obviously, because Gaza is one of the most densely populated places in the world. 50% of the residents are under 18, so when you bomb a building, the chances that you're killing children is pretty much 100%.
There's no way he's going to be in the dark about the situation, right? My understanding is Sam Seder is just very much not like in this like online world of political, you know, slap fighting or all that. It wouldn't surprise me if Sam Seder literally knew fuck all, literally knew absolutely nothing about the ongoing feud between Hassan and Ethan.
Okay? It's fucking barbaric. It's unacceptable. It's disgusting. I've seen videos, you know, I saw videos of Palestinian dads holding his dead like 5-year-old daughter. I mean, I don't need to watch this part because it just gets a little too emotional. But I mean, so that was my take right after October 7th. And obviously that was coming off the end of me being like kind of, I mean, I'm an Israeli citizen. The morning of October 7th, me and my wife were up at 3 a.m. as families were calling into news stations from their safe houses, people being burned alive with their families being murdered while on the phone with news. So coming off of that emotional shock, right? Was this was my reaction. Now, I don't know if there's something Zionist or pro-Israel I said there, but maybe I don't understand.
I mean, I think much of what you said was true. I'm not sure, frankly, if what we've seen Israel do.
What's worse, Sam Seder or Jimmy Dore? Jimmy Dore is a billion times worse than Sam Seder.
In terms of Gaza, is not broadly supported in Israel. I'm not seeing the body politic. I mean, I was doing a lot of interviews with Israeli reporters earlier in 2023 about the protests against what Netanyahu was doing with the judiciary. And there was a question as to whether Israelis would see that this autocracy that Netanyahu was attempting to sort of impose on the country wasn't an extension of what was happening in places like the West Bank and in Gaza in some fashion, and more so the West Bank at that time. And so I think it's hard to make an argument. And look, I would make it's not a perfect analogy as to what's happening in this country, but when you talk about the Israeli population not having a problem with what's going on in Gaza, I don't see a lot of evidence of that. There's certainly, I would imagine, a percentage of Israelis, and I know some of them who think that Israel should stop its assault there, but I don't think I don't see a lot of evidence that a year and a half later, after you said those things, that this is not the character of the vast majority of Israeli society. I mean, I'm not necessarily convinced that they are as aware. I mean, I've talked to people who have reported in the West Bank, and they said they would go from the West Bank into Israel, and the lack of awareness of what was happening in the West Bank by Israelis was shocking to them. So, I can't say if the Israeli population had a full understanding of what was happening in Gaza, that they wouldn't change their mind. But I don't see a lot of evidence of it.
So, as you touched on, this was made basically before the war started. And I think that the unfortunate, really tragic outcome of the war is how much it's jaded and radicalized, I think, people in Israel. It's really, I think people in Israel feel like isolated. They feel like...
One of the most mind-melting things about this oppressor-oppressee dynamic is it destroys your ability to consider things from another perspective, right? Like, is it true that Israel's, war in Gaza has been pretty insane, that a ton of people have been killed, civilians included, that the Palestinians are paying a massive cost of life and limb and property and everything as well, and economic future opportunity and everything. Yes, this is absolutely true. And is it possible to say that Palestinians are going to be radicalized in the future or currently radicalized because of current treatment by Israel and everything? Yeah, for sure, that's totally fair. But you can never make that same statement about Israelis. Is it fair that Israelis feel that it's a little bit mindfucky that these people literally came across the border and made videos of them raping and murdering Israelis and celebrating it, and they were on the phones with their parents bragging about killing Israeli? That's pretty mindfucky as well. It can't just be one side getting mindfucked. We can't keep pretending that only one group of people can be radicalized. It's such a short-sighted and stupid way to approach everything politically.
I mean, the sentiment in Israel is basically that the world wants, the country to disappear. Yep. And obviously, that's a much more nuanced conversation. But the feeling there has definitely radicalized a lot since the war started. It's gotten a lot worse.
Yep.
And I think I think that gets to it to some extent. I mean, you have this wholesale slaughter. I was looking up. We killed. In Iraq, depending on what numbers you want to look at.
Sam's only going to look at it from one side.
I think it's safe to say directly hundreds of thousands of people. But even the number of children that we killed in Iraq, I think has been surpassed by what's happened in Gaza. And I think one of the things that I find shocking is that the sense and look, I experienced this with family members, where the sense that there's a victimization, for instance, let's say on college campus of Jewish students, and I think that to look at what's going on, the totality of what's going on, and to perceive the victims of what's happening here to be the Israeli citizenry or Jews in this country. I think it just blows my mind. I mean,
two people can care about two things at once.
It's fuck, dude. Sam is a really, really, really good debater. I don't know if Ethan is going to be able to do this conversation. You just, the one-sided empathy is just such a stupid way to approach a conflict. I feel like it's literally post-World War I world where it's like, let's settle all the blame on one side and see how it goes. And I thought we learned this lesson. It's like, okay, fuck, maybe we need to have a little bit more of a nuanced approach to foreign politics. Maybe it's actually not a good way to solve problems to just blame one side for everything and have absolutely no empathy for the parties involved. But for Israel, I guess we can always make exceptions for the Jews.
Why should people?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
People who are uninvolved in the war, if they're being victimized in a separate situation because of their Jewish identity, that's a problem, don't you think?
Oh, I do, but
you can care about two things. You can't be like, oh, these people are ridiculous for caring about anti-Semitism on college campuses.
That's good.
Because the war's happening. I mean, both we can care about two things.
100%.
And obviously, one is way worse, right? One is way worse.
But that's the point. I mean, one is way worse than what's happening in Gaza.
Who should tolerate being discriminated against?
That one is way worse. Also, this is another weird oppressor-oppressee thing. Nobody cares. Nobody evaluates world pain like that. Nobody compares their situation, and we all know this intuitively, right? When somebody complains, I can't afford, a home, or I can't afford a car, and it's like, would you rather be a starving child in Africa? Well, no, but that's not my fucking standard of comparison for living. Because if you want to play the comparison game, why the fuck are we talking about Arab death in Israel at all? When we should just basically be exclusively focusing on Yemen and Syria.
It's based on their identity, you know what I mean? Like, of course,
Well,
who wouldn't react to that?
I don't think that people are. I don't think that people are being victimized. I mean, certainly, listen, anti-Semitism is real. It was real when I was a kid. There was many times I had pennies thrown at me growing up and playing basketball. I mean, there was a lot of. I've experienced anti-Semitism, but I would put it in the context of you're a parent, I'm a parent. If my kid is going through something very difficult, it's obviously difficult for me, but it's more difficult for them. And it's a question of prioritizing these things. You can have two thoughts in your head at the same time, but to center oneself or to perceive that one's victimization is sufficient to ignore the
I got to stop you because I don't think I don't know
no one's saying to ignore.
Well, I mean, I
just have to
said,
be mindful of both.
You just presented as the Israeli population feels like they're isolated and this and that.
There's two different separate conversations. There's like the American Jewry who's like, I have nothing to do with that place. And then the Israelis, right? So when you're talking about,
in terms of the way that you characterize the Israeli feeling, was that they feel isolated, et cetera, and I can understand that, but to not have the first thought of we are committing, like you say, genocidal acts.
Well, that's going to be cringe.
People want to call it genocide. I don't, obviously it's got to be. It's a legal term, but I think that it's, colloquially speaking, at the very least, it is a genocide. And to
remember, this is the reason why also that type of propaganda is so effective, and the goal of that type of propaganda, the reason why it's so important to call it a genocide and to talk about apartheid is because these things are thought terminating. They shut down the conversation immediately. What, are you going to defend a genocide? You sure about that, buddy? You're going to sit here and defend that people are being genocided? You want to make this conversation anything but the ongoing genocide? You sure about that? Right?
Not recognize that as the fundamental issue. The first issue, I think, is blinkered. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it's a little gobsmacking to me.
Well, so I do agree with you that obviously in Israel, people, I think the problem, and just to say on a higher level, I agree with you, obviously the people in Israel compared to what's, on October 7th, they were victims. After everything that's happened, obviously whatever they've suffered pales in comparison to the mass destruction and wanton death of civilians in Gaza and what's happening in the West Bank too, lots of awful stuff. That being said, I think the problem with Israel, just to try to explain what's happening there, because I do agree with you, is just like the media apparatus and the feeling that they have there. It's like there's not a lot of space emotionally, and like even the information that they're consuming, I think, that would allow them to have that kind of like self-realization. And like you said, a lot of Israelis don't know what's happening.
There are some. I mean,
there are some. Yeah, of course,
Haaretz, you know, what was it in the fall? You had the publisher of Haaretz, you know, speaking out about what was going on there. And the paper was essentially, you know, a cutout, or there was an attempt by the government to basically shut them down on to some extent. I mean, so.
Well, so what's your explanation why Israelis don't care? It's not that they're evil, right?
Well, that's a really good question. I wonder if Sam Seder will answer that, because they try to avoid this by saying Zionists or Israelis, and they'll avoid like saying Jews because they're not being anti-Semitic. But it's like, okay, you're telling me that all the Israeli Jews in Israel have this opinion, and apparently it's not any response to any valid thing that's going on. Okay, well, why? Why the fuck are they doing this? What is the answer to that?
I think, look, there's, I'm sure that there is a mass, you know, sort of like a failure to deal with trauma. But I think some of it is, frankly, is a racism. I think.
Oh, so Jews are just racist. Okay.
You know, how can you explain, you know, how can I explain how I just watched a clip of people at a Trump rally chanting USA, USA, to watching a video of people being, you know, taken into that prison in El Salvador and having their head shaken. I mean, I don't know how I can explain that. So I don't know how I could explain how the Israelis are able to the extent that they can see what's going on in Gaza, have that reaction. But I know that it's wrong. And I think, you know, some of it undoubtedly is a racism. Some of it is, you know, maybe some type of mass failure
such an
to deal with trauma. I mean,
and it's just a failure.
I don't know all the
failure to deal with trauma, right? Notice that what he's saying, a lot of the language here, right, is delegitimizing. At the end of the day, the important thing to think about for Sam's response here is what Sam is saying is Israelis have no good reason to have the feelings that they do about the Palestinians. There's no good reason for Israeli Jews, to have negative opinions about any of the surrounding stuff that's been going on around them. It's because they failed to deal with their trauma. It's because they have, what was the other thing he said? He said a failure to deal with trauma, and I don't even remember. It has nothing to do with none of the actions of the surrounding Arabs, none of the actions of Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, the Houthis, none of that. It's just because of whatever the Israelis, right? Oh, and because they're racist, right? All of the agency for this is put on the Israelis.
Well, I think, you know, part of it, I think there's some of the makeup of, you know, immigrants to Israel over the past several decades. I'm sure all of that enters into it. And I'm not to Israel. There's some of the makeup of, you know, immigrants to Israel over the past several decades.
That's code word for non-Middle Eastern Jews that are going to Israel, who I guess are more racist towards brown people. That's what that was code word for.
I'm sure all of that enters into it. And I'm not in a position to sort of like be able to psychoanalyze it beyond the sort of, you know, vague notions.
Sure.
But
yeah, and I
from
agree,
my perspective, it's gobs.
I can't psychoanalyze any of this beyond a vague notion. Like we can't ask a question at all. That's totally outside of our capabilities to try to figure out why are Israelis so ass pained. We really can't engage in that at all.
Smacking. And, you know, to me, it has shown, and, you know, I never identified myself as a Zionist as a kid.
You can actually shut this down the same way that you shut down the Russian arguments. Why did Russia invade Ukraine? NATO. Expansionism. Oh, was NATO expanding in 2014? Well, no. Oh, that's strange. So did they launch it because they announced they were going to expand? Well, no. Oh, well, that's strange. What happened? Yanukovych, the Russian loyalist PM, was ousted. Oh, that's probably more why they invaded, right? Why did October 7th or October 8th, why did the invasion, why did this current war happen? Because of racism. Oh, so on October 6th, Israelis weren't racist? No. Did they all become racist on October 7th or 8th? Well, maybe not. So what happened? Well, it was in response to, oh, they were attacked first. Okay, thank you. Maybe that would be a little bit more of an honest assessment. No?
Or, you know, through the years, and I never identified myself as an anti-Zionist. I don't think you know, I think it wasn't really until someone heard me articulate my perspective on this that they referred to me as anti-Zionist, and I have, you know, I don't really care one way or another how I'm labeled. But to me, it shows a failure of that system of government. That
like, I'm curious if you should ask on the other end, do you think Palestinians are racist? Do you think the members of Hamas are racist?
Israel has. And it has failed both from a perspective of, you know, what I think some people had as a notion of Zionism in the 19th century, It has been a failure in terms of keeping Jews safe, frankly. It seems to me to have been a massive failure. And so I can't operate as someone who lives in Israel, but I can operate as someone who is an American in terms of like what we support, which is why I think we should end all aid. And as a Jew who sees...
Also, that's a red herring. This idea, the anti-Zionist people, or the anti-Semitic people probably, right, will always say this thing, well, the reason why I'm so big on coming down on Israel for this is just because we support them. And it's like, oh, okay. So you're telling me that if we were to cut off all support from Israel, you would no longer care that Israel were genociding Palestinians? You wouldn't support like aggressive regime change or anything else? You would just stop caring about the issue? The only reason why you care is because we support them? That's a bullshit answer.
My religion being used as what I perceive as a fig leaf for what Israelis or Zionists are doing. And so, I mean, that's where I'm coming from with this. That I don't know if there is a psychological state that can justify this. In fact, I don't think there is. And so,
it's just an attempt to understand, not justify. Because I mean, it is what it is, right? Like it is the way that it is, and so that's for a reason. And it's just trying to explain it. That's all. I agree with everything you're saying. But actually, one thing I want to pivot to and ask you about.
Do you think that we should cut all aid to Israel?
I think that'd be justifiable. Yeah.
And
he should ask the question next. Ethan should ask then: if we cut all aid to Israel, would you stop caring about the problem? Because there's no way that he would say yes to that. I don't believe that he would say yes to that. I don't believe it.
About like military and stuff, yeah, for sure. Israel can make their own bombs and shit.
If
they need, like, they don't need American military. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I think they do need it to do what they're doing, without a doubt. And
well, what I mean is
I don't think they need it. What is our percentage of the? It's some percentage of the military budget that we support, but they could find money from other people. They can get alliances from other countries.
They're not entitled to it, I could say more accurately. So yeah, I think military aid should be cut for sure. Until
as a Jew, and I mean, obviously you have a different connection to Israel than I do, as through your family and whatnot, and through having lived there. But as a Jew, I take such offense to what is being done ostensibly to protect me and my family and my ancestors and my progeny and all of it. It is, I mean, I think it's, I think the conflation of Zionism and Judaism is both not keeping Jews safe and is wrong at its core. And
this is a classic conflation of the everything relating to this really doesn't have much to do with Judaism as like a religion. It's a weird red herring sometimes by diasporoids, American Jews that just don't understand the issue very well, or just people who like talking points. Like, this doesn't really have to do when we talk about Jewish people, or when we talk about the Jewish people, we're not really talking about the Jewish people insofar as some group of people that believe in a particular religion. We're really talking about the ethnic group of Jewish people. That's really what we're talking about. Maybe you can argue Sam is kind of getting at, well, he doesn't like that Jewish people as an ethnicity are being weaponized, but I don't know, it's confusing the way he's talking about it. But
we can see what it's even doing in the context of this country, the way that it's enabled Trump and to attack universities and to attack law firms and whatever. And so I don't know. And if you agree with that, great. If not, I'm happy to discuss it with you.
Yeah, no.
Do people separate the two, though? No. Nobody in the real world separates the two. Nazis didn't go door to door saying, "Oh, you're Jewish. I'm just curious. Are you practicing or are you a secular Jew?" In the whole history of anti-Semitism, that has never, ever, ever been asked of a Jewish person before they've been persecuted in some way, pogromed in some way, Holocaust. Nobody gives a fuck about that. Nobody cares about that.
Well, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying, and part of the reason why like this chasm started between me and Hasan is very influential. So when he decides that somebody is an enemy of the movement for criticizing him, which is what I perceive happened, then it kind of becomes reality. For example, one of my criticisms of his is him not supporting Kamala Harris. Now, would she have stopped the war and been like a perfect dove? I don't know, but I know she would have been better than Trump. I know that for sure. Trump's posting like this insane Riviera, Gaza, the Riviera with Trump hotels.
All right,
I mean, that's,
Sam.
And like he's sending the 20-pound bombs. He's telling Netanyahu.
Sam is about to give us a take of like, well, when Biden was president, they didn't do anything to help the they didn't do anything to help the Palestinians there, did they?
You have a blank check to do whatever you want. Now, like,
it just came out that Biden didn't.
Remember that news article that just came out that Biden didn't force a ceasefire? No shit, he didn't force a fucking ceasefire after terrorists. No shit, Sherlock.
Did nothing to. I mean, listen. I think.
Well, we're talking about Kamala.
I suspect that. I suspect that she would not have had the same policies as Trump. But at the same time, I think that it was a massive failure, both on a real human level. Like it would have, I think, had she articulated anything even remotely close to what I would hope her difference would have been. I think it would have probably had implications in the election, but I think perhaps even more importantly, it would have maybe implicated the behavior of Israel. So, I mean, look, I chose to support Harris because I perceived her as the lesser of two evils. But
yeah, me too. And I think that that's an important distinction to make at a time like this. Yeah,
I can certainly understand how some people were just so repulsed by what was happening that it made it almost impossible for them to vote for Harris. I think, you know,
I understand.
It's also so funny too, because if you go and talk to these ultra Zionists in fucking Israel, or like half the population, there's a reason why Israelis are massive fucking Trump simps. Okay, the Israeli perspective is not that Biden, you know, allowed them to do whatever the fuck they wanted to on both ends. That is absolutely not the Israeli perspective. The Israeli perspective is fuck Biden, fuck the Democrats, and fuck democratic leadership of the United States for not giving them the same blank check, basically, that Trump has to do whatever the fuck they want. There's a reason why why Netanyahu fucking loves Donald Trump.
Why they didn't, I totally understand the perspective. Like, I'm so disillusioned with this administration, I can't support Kamala. But at the same time, like, a hugely influential political streamer like Hasan, who has a huge influence on people, I think, and who's someone who, you know, who's very vocal about being pro-Palestine. I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to be like, I'm not voting for Kamala, or I'm not telling you who I voted for. I suspect he voted for Jill Stein personally, but either way, he hasn't said, and he wouldn't endorse her. Jesus. Now, like, if you're just like a random protester or whatever, and like you're like, I'm so disgusted, I don't want to vote, that's fine. But if you're like a high-level political streamer, and you know, basically, you have the capacity to weigh like the lesser of two evils and what that means, I feel like it's an abdication of responsibility to not make that call.
I mean, you know, I certainly have been critical of people who, you know, generally don't vote for the lesser of two evils. But I think, you know, and certainly, you know, in the run up to the 2016 election, I certainly that was my perspective. But again, you know, what the Biden administration was doing was so horrific that her inability to signal that there would be any change, you know, I think. Sometimes you have to take this at face value, and I think there would be certainly, definitely other things. You would not be assaulting the government like Trump is, but you know, I think probably this is the first election in as long as I've been doing this, and I think it's been 5 elections now. I mean, I'm old. That I couldn't really condemn.
Yes, that's because Israelis are insane, not because Biden wasn't generally permissive and helpful to Israel. Of course, we're going to be generally permissive and helpful to Israel. It's a country it's an informal ally. Of course, we're going to be. But that doesn't mean that Biden didn't do things to try to restrain Israel or force them to, you know, proceed with caution, whether it was the building of the dock for humanitarian aid, whether it was giving them some time in late October before airstrikes began, whether it was forcing them to evacuate the 1 million people out of Rafah before beginning military strikes down there. I mean, like, they did apply some restraint.
Someone from taking that position based upon what we were seeing. I mean, this is...
It's not just some random person. I do, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say informal ally, I guess. They are called out in some of our legislation pretty specifically, so...
Kamala Harris wanted a ceasefire. She stated that. Trump said, finish them. I mean, let's be honest. Like, for someone like Hasan...
Biden said, I want a ceasefire,
I'm not voting
too.
for Biden. I'm not talking about Biden.
No, I understand, but we found out that Biden, in fact, did nothing to...
He didn't force a ceasefire. He didn't force a ceasefire. Like...
To bring that about. So,
well,
like, you know...
you can talk about Biden. I'm talking about Kamala Harris.
Well,
what she said.
I mean...
Well, she's the vice president. I mean, at the end of the day, she doesn't really do that much, right?
No, but I'm talking about the candidate. Biden, as a president, said he wanted a ceasefire. She, as a candidate, said, I want a ceasefire.
Well, do you not... Even if you're like, I don't know how much I trust them. One's like, I want a ceasefire, and the other one is like, finish them.
Well, listen, I think it was certainly obvious to me that Trump was going to be worse. But I think, like, if you're trying to get the candidate to show some indication of this, you know, I can understand. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I would disagree with it. But
yeah, I get your point too. Like, ultimately, I understand why people wouldn't want to support them because of what they've seen, and like that, it feels like, you know, it feels like
it also shows a tremendous amount of just like electoral malfeasance on her part. I mean, they made an active choice. And I think, you know, you could have put that Palestinian lawmaker from Georgia on stage. They made an...
Oh, my God. Give me a break. They made an active choice to support something that's more electorally popular in 80% of the United States than to support the fucking pro-Hamas protesters? Give me a fucking break, dude.
Active choice to signal to whomever they were signaling that they weren't going to do anything. Now, I happen to believe that she would have been better on this than Trump. But they were making an active choice to do that. I mean, it was really electoral malfeasance on her part, in my opinion. But you know, I don't know what the point of litigating this is per se. But
well, we're talking about kind of my criticisms of Hasan and how this
I don't.
Well, let me show you this.
I don't care.
Yeah,
about,
I know.
Honestly, I'm like
Let me show you this. This is
I'm
more.
Not, I honestly.
Yeah, you don't care. I know.
I don't care.
Yeah. See, Sam is not bought into this conflict at all. So he's not going to be here to resolve anything between the two.
And why should you? I don't blame you. We talked about anti-Semitism, and you think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, right? But you seem to have conveyed that, compared to the destruction and everything happening, the genocide, the loss of life in Gaza, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, that obviously that's way more important. So let me show you an example of something. And again, I know you don't care about the drama. To me, this isn't drama. This is one of the biggest, most influential streamers spreading something that I think is really dangerous. And you can agree or disagree, but it's a short clip. But I'll show it to you, and you tell me what you think.
This will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting if they've ever exhibited any sort of
Ethan's not gonna give a fuck about
positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm so serious about this.
Now, by the way, he didn't misspeak. He doubled down on it yesterday. He said, no, I agree. That's what I think. Now, just to recap, he says, anyone that's had positive feelings at any point about the state of Israel is a neo-Nazi that's not fit to be a dog walker. Now, to me, that seems like extremely dangerous, dehumanizing language about what could arguably be 70% of the Jewish diaspora, and certainly probably people you know in your family.
I'll tell you, there's some hyperbole there, but
that's putting it mildly.
I think, he says Zionism, and I'll tell you what I think is really
sorry, I got to correct you. He says Zionism, and then he says if you had positive feelings about the state of Israel at any point in your life.
I got to tell you, if you
doesn't care.
If you look at what's happening right now, and you have positive feelings about Israel,
he said at any point in your life, Sam. Just to be clear about what he said.
Would I have said at any point in his life, someone's life? But I just think this is such a petty, the idea that we're going to police. Hold on, let me respond. You want me to respond to this? Like I say, I don't care about this, but if you're going to force me to respond to it, what Israel is doing right now is so far beyond the idea that someone says any time in your life or not or whatnot. He's talking about Zionism, and frankly, I think it's very difficult for me
to condemn his language.
Understand how someone could have positive feelings at this time. Now, you want to say in the past and what? Okay.
Yeah.
Like I say, I will grant you at any time in your life that is a step away. Let me finish.
Yeah.
But see, you go in and you're making this about anti-Semitism by doing this hopscotch about a poll that people had positive feelings that Jewish people do, and then therefore he is anti-Semitic. And honestly, that type of conflation, I think, is so dangerous and so disingenuous. I mean, this is I don't want to get too
this. Sam probably would engage it because he probably doesn't know the history, but then. There are so many questions here. So I'm so glad I'm not Jewish. I'm glad I'm white. Can we just a quick pause, okay? Because we've done a lot of black issues on the stream. Now we've looked at a lot of Israeli issues. It's just great being white. I really do believe the black framing that whiteness is like a category that's just made for like the master group of people who are just above all the problems of society. It is a category created to exclude others. And when you're in the white category, you just don't have to worry about like fucking anything. Like nobody gaslights you, nobody attacks you for some character. It's just fucking amazing, okay? So just big props, okay, for my fellow whites out there, okay? What an amazing place to be. Christ, okay? What an amazing place to be. When you talk, people do this thing where it's like, well, it's not anti-Semitic, okay? It's just anti-Zionist. Why were so many Jews expelled from all over the world, okay, before the country of Israel even existed? There was no common country. Was that just anti-Semitism? Okay, well, fine, the world was anti-Semitic. Why were so many Jews pogromed and expelled from Arab states in 48 after the First War? It's because they got mad as fuck that Israel was created. But why? Were they expelling Zionists or were they just expelling Jews? What about in 67? Were they expelling Zionists or were they expelling Jews? What about in 73, right? After every major war, these first three huge major wars, all these Arab states started to get really unruly about their Jewish population. People that still live there, not their Zionist population. Why do people still play this game of saying like, no, it's not anti-Semitism, it's just anti-Zionism. And then they say terms or words that invoke the thoughts of like 90% of Jewish people. How does it work that way, you know? But yeah, no.
Passionate about this. But I'll tell you something. I have had a guy who went to my bar mitzvah, my sister's bar mitzvah, my kid's bar mitzvah, sat at Passover with me 3 or 4 times, call my father and ask him if I'm anti-Semitic. Now, this is just that is just an example, an illustration of conflating when he's clearly talking about Zionism. Was it hyperbole to say any time in life, whatever? The fact of the matter is this conflation is dangerous for Jews. It is
my God. Whoa, wait. Dangerous for Jews? Why? I thought we were being honest that everybody was just being anti-Zionist. Why would there be any danger whatsoever to Jews here? What do you mean by that, Sam?
Fig leaf and a way of weaponizing anti-Semitism that has enabled Donald Trump to do the shit he's doing, that has enabled the slaughter of thousands upon thousands of children and women and men for that matter. It is not keeping Israelis safe. And this type of conflation, Ethan, is what I find far more irresponsible, frankly, than the idea that he said positive any time. I mean, look, you do a show
Sam,
4 hours a day. He does a show 5 or, as far as I can tell, 15 hours a day. And to focus in on that one tiny clause.
This is not one tiny clip, Sam. But you don't know. This is a totality of behavior.
But you
and by the way,
it's
easy. And I appreciate that you can hand wave it away and say that it doesn't.
No, I'm not hand waving it away.
Well, you kind of are.
I'm saying.
Do you not feel that these online quarrels between internet personalities are a bit pointless and frankly childish? Like, why do we care about their beef, especially with Trump bringing things? No, this is the point. The point of the pro-Palestinian propaganda machine is to cause this type of fighting. It's to get away from the fact as much as possible. It's to get away from the actual history as much as possible. It's always to take the conversation and wrestle it down into these worthless areas of discussion. This is the point. This is by design. It's a feature, not an accident.
You're saying it doesn't. You're saying actually I'm wrong for caring about it.
No, yes. In fact, I'm saying this conflation is incredibly dangerous. It is disingenuous.
I think it's dangerous
right now,
to ignore what's being described as dehumanizing violent language for American Jews that have nothing to do with the war.
That is a complete mischaracterization of that.
It's not. He's not fit to be a dog walker.
He never says the word Jews.
He says a neo.
Listen, how many?
It's also so funny too to see these progressives who are like, he didn't say Jew. He didn't say Jew. Like, if I were to say, I don't feel safe in my city with a bunch of thugs walking around, okay, with their pants hanging around their fucking knees, all right, talking this weird slang, listening to this weird rap music, and somebody's like, bro, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, you sound kind of racist there. Excuse me. I never said any race. Well, that sounds like you're being the racist one. Like, these guys are dog whistle experts when it comes to analyzing racism or any type of bigoted thought from the other side. But on their side, it's like, these goddamn Zionists all over the fucking world, these Zionists that are supporting this country, every single last fucking one of them, okay, that's supporting this country, they're not even fit to walk dogs, and we need to, whatever, like all the words. He said Zionists. He did say Zionist, okay? Kobe. Zionist.
Members of Kufi have positive feelings. How many millions of members of Kufi, the Christian organization, have positive feelings for Jews? It is clearly not a function of their Judaism. It is not a function of their Judaism. And so,
and also, sorry, no offense, but anybody that talks about Israel-Palestine and brings up the religion, Judaism, has just no idea what they're talking about. It's just not a fact. This is just not at all. It's like a two. No, I'm not trying to sound mean, but it's like when somebody has no idea. It's like, okay, so there's Islam and there's Judaism. So is it is it like the Old Testament, or like why are they fighting? It's like, no, what the fuck? Nobody targets Jews or have issues with them because of their religion. That's not what we're talking about in this conflict. When we're talking about Judaism, we're almost exclusively speaking about the ethnic side of things here, with maybe some outer perimeter issues. Like, this is not what we're talking about here, at least on the Jewish side.
Describes most Jews.
No.
Yes, it does, Sam.
It describes most Christian evangelicals, too.
It may do them, too, but it also describes 73% of Jews.
That is not anti-Semitism.
I don't know. What do you call it when somebody's discriminating against the vast majority of a racial or religious group, Sam?
I'm sorry. You want to look at evangelical Jews?
I don't care about evangelical people.
Okay, but I'm talking about the way you're constructing this.
I think
you can say the same thing about Christian evangelicals, too. It is not anti-Semitism. It is not. It just isn't.
Like, taking one example.
Wait. I'm sorry, real quick. Is there any advantage to making stuff in this... in the cryogenic plant? Oh, it just doesn't need to be heated, huh?
And isolation, which is what we've done here.
Well, you are the one who gave it to me.
Yeah, well,
I don't even want to talk about it,
I disagree
but I'm
with
using
you.
your example, and in that instance, that is not anti-Semitism.
Well, I disagree.
Conflation. Okay, well, that's our disagreement.
Yeah.
But I think that conflation is incredibly dangerous.
Well, I disagree as well.
Jews,
I think
it's dangerous for this society.
I think, frankly, I think it's dangerous to what I perceive as hand waving what's happening here. I know you said you aren't doing that.
I'm not hand waving.
You're doing the opposite. You're endorsing
decades of thought about this.
So,
decades of thought.
But the point is, you're saying that this is not dangerous. How dare you care about this? I think it's dangerous
I'm not saying that at all.
I personally, I mean,
I'm
Jewish people have a collective
mischaracterization
memory of trauma,
of it as
Sam, and it starts a certain way. And it starts with people. It starts with dehumanizing language, like saying you're not fit to walk a dog. I mean, what are we doing here? It's irresponsible language.
He's not talking about.
He's talking about 73% of Jewish people.
No, you said that.
No, that's a poll that's readily available.
No, you made that connection. He did not. Because we have millions upon...
Hassan doesn't know. Is he about to say we have millions upon millions of Jews that don't support the state of Israel? Because that would just be a fucking lie. What? Wait, hold on. I'm sorry.
Millions of members of Kufi. We have millions upon millions in this country of evangelicals.
Bro, nobody... I'm sorry. I have never in my life heard somebody use Zionist to refer to non-Jewish Israeli supporters. That's just not... At least in the vernacular that I'm aware of, I don't hear people talk about like Christians that support Israel that much as Zionists. Like, this is almost always used to refer to Jewish people supporting Israel, or like AIPAC or stuff like this. What are we talking about? Get out of here. Oh my God.
who also believe the same thing.
Does your dad
and
have?
You cannot say it's anti-Semitism.
Could you
You
describe
cannot say it's anti-Semitism if you're also including millions upon millions, far more Christians than Jews.
Would you say that your father, who you mentioned, said something to you, that he's ever in his life had positive feelings about the state of Israel?
I've had positive feelings of Israel.
Well, does your dad have any positive feelings about it now? Not in terms of like I support them, but
I've had
I think
positive feelings. I went to Israel on.
Okay, good. Then you're a neo-Nazi, not fit to walk a dog. How do you feel about that?
No, that's you saying that.
That's literally what he said. I'll play it again.
No. I think like this will never happen, but in a totally just world, any kind of, regardless of your background, any kind of fucking Zionist tendency should be treated in the same way as being a fucking rabid neo-Nazi. And you shouldn't even let someone be the fucking local dog catcher as Felix was posting if they've ever exhibited any sort of like positive feelings about the state of Israel. I'm just so serious about this.
Another thing he's doing, by the way, and Hassan is
listen.
He plays around with the term Zionist, right?
You can say that's a wrong thing to say, but he's not talking about Jews. He's talking about people who have exhibited these positive feelings, and that includes millions upon millions of Christians.
I don't know about that one, Chief. Don't you get called a Zionist? Yeah, people will use it occasionally, but when people are saying Zionists, like when people say Zog, nobody is saying Zionist-controlled government or what is it, Zionist occupation government or Zionist government. Nobody is saying that to mean, wow, pro-Israeli Christians are occupying the government. Like, it's literally baked into their racial slurs. It's baked into their conspiracies, okay? Come on. This is a joke point.
More Christians.
Okay, well, listen, I don't think they're neo-Nazis, not fit to walk dogs, either. I think it's insane language.
Listen, you don't want to tell me that you have never engaged in hyperbole. You and I both are in this business when we do that.
Yeah, you're right. You know, I just think that,
It's, listen, you can say it's an inappropriate thing to say. It's an unfair thing to say.
I just think like Arabs that support Israel aren't fit to walk a dog.
It is not anti-Semitism.
Okay, well, we're at an impasse on this one.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, but anyway, another thing he does is he says Zionist tendencies, and he's someone that plays around with Zionism. He calls me a Zionist, and again, I know we're arguing here about semantics of what Hassan said, but I don't think that
he's
you can accurately characterize me as that, as it's used colloquially. You don't know, right? But he's saying Zionist tendencies. What does that mean?
Say it.
What's a Zionist tendency?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, you're going to talk to him on Friday. You can ask him what a Zionist tendency is. I suppose I would guess. And, like I've looked at polls too, where, people have various different understandings of what Zionism is. But I think it is my guess, and I don't know what he was thinking specifically, but the notion of an ethno-state that engages and allows whatever in the name of Zionism allows for this mass slaughter, I think is horrific.
Wow.
So sure, brave. Me too.
Okay. I mean, then I think we the three of us agree on that regard.
Yeah, I think we're so. Another thing is like to take it even further. I mean, Hassan pretty much like openly supports
Let's not talk
Hamas.
about Hassan. Let's talk about this.
Sure. I mean, what do you want to ask me?
Well, I mean, if you want to ask me about, I mean,
well, let me.
I'm not here to explore.
Yeah. I have a list of things.
But if you want to talk about Hamas, I mean, I think look.
Well, how do you feel about Hamas?
God, come on, dude. This is such an easy. If you're not a disgusting piece of shit. It's so fucking easy to just say Hamas is horrible. Is it? He's not going to give some answer along the lines of like, I'm not here to criticize a resistance movement for not acting perfectly. He must be able to just say Hamas is horrible. I don't defend Hamas, but I understand where they're coming from.
List of things that.
But if you want to talk about Hamas, I mean, I think look.
Well, how do you feel about Hamas?
I feel that Hamas. People can perceive it as a liberation organization. We call them terrorists in this country. We call the ANC
we call the ANC terrorists. We call Nelson Mandela terrorists. It's the same. These are the Pally talking points. Dude, it's so gross. Holy shit. Oh my God, bro.
I'm Sam.
Listen, I think there are parts, I would imagine, of Hamas that have done good for the people in Gaza, and I think they have done bad things. But can
you make, this is what I would be curious, can you make the same concession for the Israeli government? Can you at least say that maybe the Israeli government has done some good things and some bad things? Or is the Israeli government all bad, but Hamas we can have a nuanced look at?
I feel, I guess, ultimately probably like Ehud Barak when he said that were I Palestinian and I was living in Gaza, that it would be likely that I would join Hamas. I mean, that's what Ehud Barak said on multiple occasions. And I think that is very, that is an understanding of human nature.
That you're not affording Israelis, by the way, just to point out an inconsistency there.
How so?
Well, you're like, I refuse to understand human nature and their reaction.
Oh,
it's
true.
just
Good
evil,
job.
and
Good
I don't know how to explain it.
I didn't use the word evil.
Right. I'm inferring, because I asked you if you think they're evil, and you didn't really answer that.
Listen, I don't know what Gazans felt on, October 8th. But toward Hamas. But I can tell you that, there is a long history of terrorist organizations or so-called terrorist organizations
that
like the
ANC fighters?
or the IRA, even the PLO,
Now, Sam, I
that ultimately become political organizations.
I think the comparison to Hamas to what happened in South Africa is insanely disingenuous. And I personally hate when people do that.
I mean, Mandela didn't think so.
Well, Mandela did think so. He explicitly stated that he avoided committing violence on the citizenry because it would make reunification impossible.
Yep.
That's something he said.
I think you could say that tactically speaking. Listen,
by the way, Sam, in the totality of their campaign, I think under 200 civilians died.
Yep.
And the people who did kill civilians
Numbers.
were almost all held accountable for what they did.
Yep.
That's a difference, Sam.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that
A significant difference.
Well, it is a significant difference. I mean, I imagine many of those people who committed atrocities on October 7th are dead now. And,
What the fuck what kind of wacky weirdo dodge? What? Because Israel killed them.
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, that's accountability.
Accountability by who? Who killed them? What?
Okay. I mean, being held accountable by the party that they're presumably doing the violence on behalf.
Yes.
Like,
you're saying the entire ANC was held accountable?
No, I'm saying Nelson Mandela's party, if someone killed a civilian, they would hold them accountable. They would charge them. They would disavow their actions.
The ANC did?
Yes.
Well, the IRA was bombing places in,
Remember,
in England. And
why are we... None of these people know anything about the... Fuck. I was trying to be nice to Sam Seder. I'm sorry, I can't do it, actually. It's the foreign policy breaks me. This is why the Kalinsky Bridge will never be rebuilt either. I can't do these foreign policy takes. It's always the same 2 or 3 movements that they try to rope, and they don't know anything about them or give a fuck. Seder had no fucking idea what the ANC actually did. He probably just assumed they were murdering civilians all over South Africa. That's not true. And I think that 200 number that Ethan gives is even an oversight. The ANC explicitly and specifically tried to only target government public infrastructure because they knew that killing civilians would be a bad idea, okay? Like, this was an explicit stated goal, and Mandela was ready to accept peace and reunification in South Africa. What deals did Arafat ever accept? That's another killer question to the pro-Pallies. What was Arafat looking for? Can you give me anything that Arafat was actually willing to agree on with any of the Israeli delegation ever when it came to settling a peace deal between Israelis and Palestinians? Ever? Like, one deal on the table, one firm statement of him that he would have accepted, because you can't find it. The comparison between Mandela and Arafat or the ANC and Gaza or Hamas is just ridiculous. And it just shows you don't understand anything about any of the movements. And then they also jump up to the Irish stuff as well, because these are like all of the meme groups that just get kind of roped in with each other. And it's like, bro, give me a fucking break.
Throughout Ireland, I mean, we have even the Irgun or the Stern Gang. When they killed
the Irgun? You mean the people? Yes, they were terrorists. They were. And when and when they were literally sailing back to fucking Israel, he would be a future prime minister. Menachem Begin or whatever, as they were literally sailing back to Israel with fucking, I think they had a whole ship full of fucking smuggled weapons from Czechoslovakia, and they're like, we're about to fucking terrorist the fuck out of this. It was Ben Gurion standing with a Haganah who literally set fire to and attacked the own incoming ship, saying, we are disbanding all of you. You guys are insane. You're all joining the Haganah or whatever, and then we're going to just join the new IDF, right? These groups were terrorists. They did commit these attacks, and they were disbanded. They were disavowed by the Haganah. Ethan won't know. Ethan won't have this perspective. Fuck, it's such a bad faith talking point.
The villagers in 1948. I mean, the history is full of examples of organizations
harassing the villagers in 48. You mean during the war? When there was an active war? This was during a war. It was a war of independence. It was like 6, 7 Arab states versus Israel. Yeah, there was a lot of shit going on. What are you talking about?
I commit terrorist acts. Now, I will tell you,
people look
personally,
at South Africa.
I do not condone the killing of civilians. Which is why obviously I'm upset about what Israel is doing.
Sure. The part that I don't like about people say, I feel like people sweep for Hamas by saying, like, what do you expect, right? But the truth is that people use South Africa as an example, but what South Africa shows is that you don't need to commit a violent war against civilians to liberate yourself.
Well, I mean, listen, we had for a year, we had the Great March of Return, where Sinwar himself was involved in that. There was Palestinians marching on a regular basis over the course of the year. I don't know how many it was, 50 or whatever, that were...
Please, God, tell me Ethan has watched. Sam has all the meme talking points. And also, by the way, Sam's saying Sinwar himself was involved. The whole point of that Great March of Return was that Sinwar wasn't supposed to be involved. That was just supposed to be Palestinian people marching back to their old homes in fucking Israel. It wasn't supposed to be with the involvement of Hamas. So Sam is accidentally granting the pro-Zionist talking point, which was true, by the way, that Hamas involved themselves on day fucking 1. And you can see videos of Sinwar walking amongst the people talking about it, okay? They weren't supposed to have any Hamas involvement originally.
Where innocent people went there and snipers are shooting down unarmed civilians. And so...
Oh my God, it's every meme talk. I don't care. I don't care. Fuck, he's trying to be pro-Zionist again. Fuck, we need to listen to more Benjamin Netanyahu. Get me out of here.
Time and time again, and over the course of the 20 years that I've been professionally, covering this, my attitude towards Israel's willingness to have peace has changed, and my understanding of it has changed. And I can only imagine how more intense that feeling is to be living in a place that is, functionally like the Warsaw Ghetto, insofar as like you don't have access to resources, you have 50%.
Oh my God. Sorry.
Unemployment, the apartheid that is taking place in terms of the West Bank. I mean,
I agree with those characterizations, by the way, Sam. Just to say.
Okay, but I can't imagine that my response wouldn't be to pick up a weapon.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
So he understands it. Okay, cool. So you understand the violence on the Palestinian side, but you won't grant any of that understanding on the Israeli side. That's good. Okay, cool. Good one.
Working out. Well, none of it's working out, is it?
Not much at all. Not really much at all.
It's called the greatest attack on Israelis in 75 years. The notion of Zionism and the way that Israel is organized as a society.
Hey, I must be being uncharitable here, because it almost sounds like that was a tinge of congratulations for Hamas's attack. But maybe I was just reading that phrasing uncharitably. Like Ethan was like, how's that going for him? And like, well, not good, because Hamas just fucked him up.
Well, none of it's apartheid that is taking place in terms of the West Bank. I mean,
I agree with those characterizations, by the way, Sam. Just to say.
But I can't imagine that my response wouldn't be to pick up a weapon.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
It's not really working out.
Well, none of it's working out, is it? I mean,
not much at all. Not really much at all.
It's called the greatest attack on Israelis in 75 years. The notion of Zionism and the way that Israel is organized as a society is not protecting Jews. Well, it's not protecting Israelis. It's not protecting Jews worldwide. It is. There may have been a time where Zionism had and there were certainly proponents of Zionism in the early 20th century, in the late, perhaps late 19th century, where there was a notion of a multi-ethnic democracy that fell by the wayside.
See, this is the historical argument, right? But Ethan won't have this. Like, oh, so at one point Zionists were willing to have this like multi-ethnic society. What changed? What happened that made them not feel that way? Sam, did they all just become racist? Maybe they did, but make them say that at least. So what? So they were willing to do this multi-ethnic thing, and then they stopped. Why? What happened?
Like Hannah Arendt and Einstein, left the Zionist Congress, and what it has evolved into is, I think, a nightmare for everyone involved. And so, I don't know how I would react in that type of miseration, frankly.
Well, can I ask you?
But again, Ehud Barak said that he would pick up a wepen were he one of them. And
that's fine.
He's far closer to the conflict than I am.
I'm not saying I don't understand why people pick up weapons, right? So let me ask you this: what do you think about October 7th attack?
What do I think about it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was
He's just going to do this. I condemn all civilian death. Oh. But Israel does way more. Oh.
Horrific.
Mm-hmm. And this was like a military action by Hamas to what end?
I mean,
don't do the thing. Don't do the thing. Don't do the thing. I suspect. Okay, no. You're gonna say I suspect it was probably just for terrorism, because sometimes people like to be cutesy and sneaky with this, and they like to do this talking point of saying that because there were a couple military bases that were hit, because on the Gaza fence there are military establishments in some of these near some of these kibbutzim. And so some people will try to say, actually, it was just a military hit. I think actually if you go to the Arab version of Wikipedia, I think they still have that talking point there. Oh, this is just a military strike. He's not going to do that, though.
I don't know what the strategy was. I mean, they attacked 2 military bases. I don't know if they were aware of that.
The festival?
The
oh, my God.
The Nova Rave.
yeah, I don't know if they knew that that rave was happening.
It's so unreal, dude. It's every shitty pro-Palestinian. Oh god, that one guy in my chat's probably getting so triggered right now. I'm sorry, Charlie.
I suspect it was to derail the Abraham Accords, which were going to leave the Palestinians out of the equation, where an authoritarian
you leave out that they
derail the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords had already gone through. What do you? They were already being like acted upon. What do you mean? I like how there is like some political and masterminded thing. I mean, to some extent, that's actually kind of true. They were fighting against Israeli integration with the rest of the Arab world. That is true, but
attacked kibbutzim, by the way.
No, yes, of course they did. But I'm saying that they.
But they also attacked military bases.
I don't know what the strategy was.
Well, okay, so what do you think? Like, would you expect the response of Israel would be to that?
I had no doubt on that day.
They were going to launch a genocide.
Israel was going to respond.
Go insane. Yeah, right. It was going to be horrific. We all knew.
Yes, but I think I think the lack of proportionality was just beyond, frankly, and I was aware that this was going to be a horror show, but I don't think I had the level of awareness of what they would do to go in and literally level it, destroy, what is it, 90% of the structures in Palestine, bomb hospitals, that they would use.
Well, Hamas did know that because that's why they attacked.
Food as a weapon.
I'm more interested in like the justification for what they're doing.
Probably took hostages with the idea that they would be able to negotiate.
I understand why they took hostages. I don't understand why they took children and elderly.
I believe that they probably. I mean, this is all conjecture on my part. That they would be able to trade them as a way to inhibit Israel's doing what they're doing. And I don't know if they could have even imagined that. I'm not going. to.
Like, listen to how much. It's so funny. He can't even imagine why Israelis feel the way that they do. But his imagination for Hamas can extend to not even what Hamas thinks, but Hamas's own imagination, right? Why do Israelis have such a feeling about Palestinians? I don't know. Racist? What was Hamas thinking on October 7th? Well, they were probably hoping that they could capture civilians so that after doing their attacks, of which 2 were against military bases, that they could probably exchange those for other Israelis. But I don't even know if Hamas could imagine how crazy Israel would be after those terrorists. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Really?
I'm not going to endorse Hamas's, strategy here.
Well, I'm just trying to flesh it out here because this is what I'm getting to is Hamas. I think they knew that this was the reaction that would happen.
I can't imagine that they assumed that there would be this level of destruction.
I mean, that's why they hate Israel. I don't think they underestimate how violent the IDF can be. You know what I mean? That's why they attacked.
I certainly underestimated that they would go this far.
I didn't think they go this far, but
bomb hospitals and
Why wouldn't they assume that? Haven't you guys said Israel has been bombing hospitals and killing? Didn't you just bring up the Great March of Return where innocent Palestinians are being shot by snipers? Didn't this happen with Cast Lead? Didn't this happen with Protective Edge? In what was it, 2008 and then 2014? Like, haven't these same things happened? Why would you assume any different now? What? Doesn't even make sense.
Shoot EMTs and have rules of engagement like this. I mean, and I think Hamas is certainly up to criticism for their strategy here.
If that's an understatement.
Up to credit. I don't think Hamas is beyond a reproach. Let me be clear. I think we can criticize Hamas. Oh my God, dude.
Well, I mean, if that's they're
a terrorist organization that intentionally antagonized like the IDF to come mass slaughter their civilians.
I think that if they overestimated whether Israel cared about the hostages, without a doubt. I mean, there's I don't know that there would.
And somehow it's still like roped back around to being like Israel's fault. I just thought that maybe Hamas just thought Israel would give a fuck about some of their captured people, but they underestimated how much Israel doesn't even care about their own people.
Be anybody who would make a case that this is what was their plan to have Israel respond in this way. That's absurd.
Well, and the same is true of I guess Israelis feel the same way. Like, it was totally unprecedented. You know what happened. So maybe they didn't think that their mission would be as successful as it was. On the other hand,
I have no doubt that they did not think that they would that they would have been able to overrun that. I mean, I think we were told that the technology of Israel's defense, et cetera, was perfect and something we should emulate in this country. I mean, Trump was all talking about that. So I have no doubt that Hamas overestimated
the IDF. Yeah, I got you.
What they would be able.
Underestimated how effective their attack would be. And when you get to, especially when you're Arab, man, or Palestinian, I guess, and when you get to a festival full of music goers, fuck, man, how could you not just fucking mass rape and murder? They probably thought that the IDF would have stopped them by then. They weren't even ready for it. Jesus.
Able to, what kind of destruction they would wreak, and they underestimated the violence that Israel would perpetrate on Gaza. I don't know that anyone could have imagined that Israel would have engaged in this level of destruction and immiseration and
real quick, how do you burn off extra ice, or what do you do with your extra ice on this godforsaken fucking planet?
Bombing churches and bombing hospitals and blowing up universities and destroying the infrastructure. I mean,
see, Ethan, this is another history point. Oh, recyclers. Like, what Ethan should just respond very simply here is, I thought you said that Israel's been engaging in all of this behavior since 2005, at least, if not since their founding. You're telling me that Palestinians who have been living in an apartheid state for 75 years underestimated the level of destruction that Israel would wrought onto Gaza if they committed the largest terrorist attack in, like, the history of the world? Like, do you know how fucking stupid that sounds on its face? How silly that is? What?
It's almost beyond belief.
So one thing that when I was talking to Hasan, and I'm just going to talk about his point. This is about him personally. When I asked him, because this is obviously the $1 million question, right? By the way, there's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza?
True.
There's not one public bomb shelter in Gaza?
Mm-mm.
Let's see. What is the response here? Israel would probably bomb it anyway. They've already shown that they're willing to target journalists and healthcare people and that.
Okay.
I just think that's interesting. It's pretty fucked up, don't you think?
Do I think it's fucked up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand the point. Like,
well, I mean,
do you think anything would be standing anymore?
Well, bomb shelters are underground. I mean, they would definitely be a lot safer.
I've seen what happened to tunnels under hospitals.
Your statement is, so you say there were tunnels under hospitals?
Israel?
Yeah, Israel built them. I've read that article too. They did build some as a bomb shelter under, it was one of these hospitals. I don't think it was Al-Shifa, but that doesn't mean that they were meant to be used for Hamas, C2. It's all of them. It's all the bad talking points. It's all the bad talking points. Yeah, go ahead, give it to us.
Build the ones under the first one that they went into. They built it when they were occupying Gaza.
Are you right? That's true of that one. I mean, they have a vast tunnel network, obviously, as everybody knows. But I don't care. I don't want to get into the weeds on this. The $1 million question is like, what can we do? Now, it's obviously insanely difficult
as
to say.
Americans, I think we can stop aid immediately. I mean, obviously, it's not going to happen under
I'm
Trump.
in favor of that, by the way.
Okay, I mean, good.
I mean, I
think we should call for all aid to be ceased, and I think we should stop protecting them in the
What
UN.
should have Israel done on October 8th, I guess? Like, what would have been an appropriate response for their government?
I mean,
without saying not this.
What should they have done on October 8th? I mean, I think that...
they should have disbanded their entire government. They should have made a deal to get all the hostages back. They should have never gone into Gaza at all. They should have just bent over and welcomed the Palestinian dick into the Zionist ass. They should have disbanded the whole state of Israel, basically, with maybe a little bit of special ops sprinkled in, maybe, but probably not.
I think that they're hitting strategic sites to attempt to take out leadership. They should have, but let's not,
the leadership was underground.
Yeah, to look at that moment in history, like maybe it was.
I disagree because they had to do something.
Maybe in that moment, they had to go in and bomb or whatever they do. I think that any action that they would have taken at that point, frankly, was a function of literally decades of oppressing people and attempting to bring this to an eventuality.
So nothing.
Right. I mean, this was.
That's good. At least he's a little bit honest about it. And this is what most Israelis would say. No matter what we do, everybody around the world is always going to criticize us. There is no correct action, which is probably true. People like Sam would have never allowed Israel to take any kind of defensive action here or offensive action. They would have never allowed it.
And so what should they have done?
Ages ago. Well, I mean,
you're avoiding, yeah.
Okay, I think what they should have done is begun empowering
their government.
Palestinians in the West Bank. They should have done
this. This is my favorite answer,
okay.
Sam. You're saying that this is what Hasan told me. They should disband their government and lift the borders in response to the worst terrorist attack that's ever happened.
I think honestly, when you see that your policies have failed, but I don't think
you actually don't believe that that's a real thing, though. I'm interested in having like a real conversation. You can't like live in a fairy tale land where, in response to the worst military or terrorist attack of all time, Israel, who's already, as you state, like genocidal and racist and all these terrible things, is going to lift their borders and disband their government.
Wait a second. You're asking me what they should have done, and that's different.
No, in a realistic way, not in a fairy
tale,
Sam.
Well, listen, there is no realistic thing. Their agenda has been quite clear. Their agenda has been since Ariel Sharon walked on the Temple Mount and tried to scuttle peace talks. The agenda since the assassination of Rabin by arch Zionists in Israel, the agenda has been to bring about this moment. There is no doubt about it. The annihilation of the Palestinian people has been an agenda in Israel for far too long. So from the perspective, it's anything I say is fantastical relative to what they would actually do. Anything.
There's nothing they could have done that because of the situation, anything they would have done would have been.
There was no plan that on this day they were going to do this. But if you go back 10 or 15 years ago and look into Bibi Netanyahu's brain, the idea that this is ultimately going to happen was definitely the agenda.
What, in terms of like attacking Gaza or inciting an attack?
I would imagine both, frankly. But to find a way to eliminate the Palestinians, this has been the agenda of at one time what I think was a smaller segment of the Israeli body politic, and I think has increasingly become an even larger portion of the Israeli politic.
Why?
So I mean, anything
Why
I say in terms of should is fantastical. Anything.
So yeah, okay. I mean, so this is like I understand where you're coming from, right? Like,
there was an opportunity for a ceasefire that was called in November, in December. They could have held a ceasefire at any point, and the amount of killing would have been far less. They could have.
Why, in what world, would you have ever expected anybody to agree to a ceasefire when you have just like you understand that no country on the planet would be okay with you committing the largest terrorist attack fucking ever, and then right after that saying, whoa, wait. This is like, it reminds me of the siblings where you're antagonizing I guess it would be an older sibling, and you like hit them, and then they look at you and you're like, oh, wait, I didn't mean, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean, right? It's like, bro, that's never, ever happening. That's never happening. That's never happening, ever.
Have done that. They could have ended it after a week.
Hamas could have ended the war anytime too.
How could have Hamas ended the war?
By releasing the hostages?
No, listen, Israel has said time and time again that the release of the hostages is not going to end their assault on Gaza. They have said this over
I don't believe
over and over.
I haven't seen those statements. I've seen the opposite. I believe that
you really haven't?
No, there's no world. I think Israel literally did, explicitly shut down ideas of peace talks immediately after the October 7th attacks. I don't think Israel would have accepted, and they shouldn't. That's ridiculous. You can't just abduct a bunch of people and then use that to have basically a free shot at attacking Israel, and then saying okay, wait, let's do hostages. We're good now, right? LOL.
Haven't seen those statements?
No, I haven't. I'll review them. I mean, it depends when it depends when they were made too, right? Like, what's in response to?
No, at any time they could have done that.
What has Hamas done to end the war?
Hamas offered
what have
the
they done to end the war?
Early on to say Hamas offered all the hostages in agreement in response to Israel not coming into Gaza. I mean, there's just to defend Israel's actions.
That didn't happen
as being inevitable. When do you think they should have ended it? When do you think they should have ended it?
So who have ended what?
You've asked me the question, what should have Israel done? You tell me what they should have done. Do you think what they've done is right?
Well, I've clearly stated no, Sam.
Okay, so tell me what they should have done.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, hindsight is a beautiful thing, but in my opinion, like you said, I think some more specific strikes. I think more moving slowly, because as you kind of pointed out but didn't really acknowledge.
When do you think they should have ended?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the leadership is obviously underground. So it's going to be a long mission of trying to get them. It's going to be a difficult mission. But I think militarily, they probably have some obligation to their citizenry, at the very least, to take out but we're ignoring the fact that missiles are being shot into Israel nonstop. And I know you're going to say, Iron Dome stops most of them, which is true. But at the same time, I mean, a country needs to respond to that. They can't just allow missiles to be shot in.
Tell me the non-fantastical version of what they should have done. Should it have been 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How many Hamas leaders, how many members of Hamas should they have killed before they leave? Because we know that Blinken said on his way out that virtually every Hamas member of Hamas that they've killed has probably been replaced by someone who's lost a family member or an entire family or whatnot. So you tell me, Ethan, if you're...
Who cares? That's not the operational efficiency of somebody isn't measured by dead relatives. If that was the case, Arabs would have never lost a war in the entire history of the Arab-Israeli conflict.
The one with the sensical perspective on this, and mine is fantastical. What should they have done that would have been appropriate in your mind?
Yeah. So besides special operations and stuff, I think it would have been a good idea to... I think there's a space where they could try to find peace partners in Gaza before destroying the whole thing. Obviously, they approached it completely wrong, right? But there are ways, I think, that could have happened that are realistic, trying to forge some kind of peace partner, some kind of alliance, some kind of international coalition.
All those people were marching in the Great March of Return, week after week after week.
Sam, was there Hamas activity at the Great March?
Sinwar was marching. Sinwar was marching with them.
Were people attacking the border wall?
During the Great March of Return, the first dozens of these things before the...
People were attacking from the first one, by the way. So whatever Sam is about to say here is a fucking lie, because he probably doesn't know anything about it, because he probably doesn't give a fuck about it, to be fair. It's just West versus East, oppressor versus oppressee, and that's all you got to know.
The snipers? No, they weren't. So there were the people, dozens of these things before the...
Dozens of these things? First of all, they were once a week. So dozens and dozens. You're talking dozens of these things would be a year's worth or half a year's worth of these marches. So just stupid. Whatever, dude.
The snipers? No, they weren't. So there were the people for peace.
There was Hamas activity. They were attacking the fence. They were trying to cross the border. But not militants. Militants were trying to cross the border.
You're telling me that in the first dozen of these marches, there were people attacking the fence?
Yes.
Correct.
Dozens of these marches, Sam? Do you even know how frequently these were once a week? Dozens? What are you talking about?
Okay.
He had no idea. He doesn't know.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think that there's a way for Israel to try. I think they can obviously.
Destiny was literally on an IDF-sponsored tour. Thank you for that contribution to my YouTube chat, Sakib Ahmed. Thank you.
Pursue peace. The way that they're doing it is impossible, right? Like, it's fucked up, it's insane, it's genocidal, it's horrific.
They're not pursuing peace.
I'm not saying. I'm saying the opposite,
I don't
Sam.
think Israel is
well, you asked me
pursuing
what should they have done. I mean, obviously
Yes.
they're not pursuing peace. I agree with you. Like, quite the opposite. That's not what they're doing. But I'm saying there could have been a path, although it's not. It's. I think, unfortunately, I think their response was inevitable based on everything that happened.
Yep.
You think it was inevitable that they would kill these many people and they would use food supplies as a weapon, that they would have leveled?
Yes, and the response should be, yeah, haven't you been accusing Israel of doing that for decades? Haven't you already been accusing Israel? Remember the sugar cookie ban, right? Haven't you guys been accusing the blockade of being genocidal for decades anyway? So why would you assume anything but?
Hospitals and universities and 80, 90% of the homes? I mean, how
I don't know to what extent, but like a huge response was definitely inevitable. I'm not justifying it, Sam. You asked me a question. I'm answering it. You're putting this on me like I'm saying.
No, I'm just saying inevitability. I wonder what you must think of an Israeli body politic where this level of atrocity is inevitable.
You're the one who literally said you couldn't even imagine why Israelis felt the way they did about all this other than racism. And now you're trying to flip this on Ethan? Like, Ethan is the one with the surprising opinion here? What?
Well, you described your and Hamas's understanding of the IDF. I wouldn't say that. I can't say to what extent, but you agree that a huge response was inevitable.
Listen, I believe a response that was inevitable by Israel, and that's because I have a much more theoretically jaded view of that country and their agenda, I think, than you. But to expect that what they've done is inevitable.
To what? Well, Sam,
I just wonder, like, what it is that you think is in that body politic. Like, listen, like, I don't think it's inevitable. Just to use an example in this country, I don't think that it's inevitable that we are going to be deporting and disappearing, immigrants in this country. I think it's possible, but my perspective on America is still too optimistic to think that's inevitable. I can't even imagine what I would think would be inevitable. And I think, listen, our invasion of Iraq and the complete lack of caring and the only thing that would even mitigate that is that, there were no images coming out of Iraq, or very few. And certainly I was exposing them more than the American population writ large. But to perceive what we did in Iraq as inevitable,
it's a different situation. That's completely, I mean, that was completely unpredictable. But we kind of touched on it. And again, to what end this even matters is it doesn't ultimately. But Hamas knew that they were going to bomb the fuck out of Gaza.
Listen, I would imagine Hamas thought there was going to be a response, but they wouldn't have taken hostages if they thought that they couldn't use those hostages
of course
as a
they thought they could. I don't deny that.
of deterring Israel from entering. And that was a miscalculation on their part. They presumed that Israel was more interested in those hostages, I think, than they had assumed.
Well, and that's part of what a lot of the civil unrest in Israel is about, is that a lot of people do care about the hostages and think that the government needs to stop the war and focus on getting the hostages back and not killing innocent civilians. So that
I wonder about that last part. But
which part?
He's about to say, Sam is about to say, the people that want the hostages back don't even give a fuck about dead civilians. They just want the hostages back. Jesus Christ. This is right after he said, how sad must your view of the average Israeli be, to Ethan? He's about to say that.
To civilians. So that
I wonder about that last part. But
which part?
The part about the killing of innocent civilians. I mean, I think that
I said that's what they're doing.
No. I'm saying I wonder if the Israeli body politic.
Oh, you think the Israelis want civilians to die?
Yes.
I think the Israelis. Obviously not all Israelis, but I think that enough of Israelis to maintain this government believe that Palestinians in Gaza, that their lives have no value, that they are all future enemies, that they that they all represent a threat to Israel. And I think that's, I think that's a twisted perspective.
Just so you know, there were massive demonstrations in Israel, tens of thousands of people in a country that's relatively small. So I think characterizing like the majority of the public as wanting to kill civilians is a little sick, personally. But it's, I guess you could say whatever you want.
I'm basing this on conversations with Israeli reporters that there does not seem to be in Israel a majority, at the very least, of people who are concerned about the fate of the Palestinians in Gaza. Certainly they want hostages, and again, not all Israelis, but look, I can make
like that's not very surprising that there's not going to be very much empathy for people at the end of an insane of the largest terrorist attack like in the history of that country, right?
Analogous assessments of the United States at various times.
Like, should we really be
about
that
things
shocked about that?
Reflect poorly on our national body politic as well. But the proof is in the pudding.
Can I tell you something? 300,000 protesters in Tel Aviv, 200,000 in the rest of the country. That's 500,000 people out in the street protesting the government of a country that has maybe 6 million or 5 million in the.
Are you talking about the protests about the judiciary?
I'm talking about to release the hostages.
Okay, to release the hostages.
Yeah. To stop, to ceasefire. Ceasefire, Sam. That's what that means.
They were
500,000.
They were calling for a ceasefire, or they were calling for a release of the hostages?
Well, what's the point of telling Hamas to release the hostages? Yeah, of course it's a ceasefire, Sam.
Well, but Israel has, and I know, I'll look this up.
Deal with this.
I don't have much
500,000
Israel. Wait. Let's look this up and see how many times the Israeli government has said return of the hostages will not end.
Sam, I'm responding to you saying the majority of Israelis want civilians to die. 500,000 people came to the street for a ceasefire of a country of 5 million, Sam. That's 10%.
Israel just broke the latest ceasefire. Okay, where is the political response from the Israeli people? I mean, the idea that Gazans can be held responsible for an election that happened 18 years ago.
Sam, you said the majority of Israelis want civilians to die.
I think the majority of Israelis do not have a problem with what's going on in Gaza.
I think that unfortunately might be true to the extent that they've gotten.
Well, then we agree.
They've gotten much more radical. Unfortunately, tragically, everybody's been a lot more radicalized since October 7th, and that's tragic. I agree. I think people in Israel are jaded and they are cynical and they don't care, like you said, and I think it's tragic.
Yes, well, that's what my contention was. I mean, I'm looking at something from May.
I wouldn't say most of them want to kill civilians.
Well, earlier, Sam, you were saying that you can't even imagine why Israelis are so ass-pained over, everything that was going on. But it's cool. I guess now you seem to understand that better, but okay.
Well, I think that they don't.
And I wouldn't say that there isn't a sizable portion of Israeli citizenry that want a ceasefire. When 500,000 people, Sam, marched out on the street of a country of 5 million for a ceasefire.
This Pew research, 39% say Israel's military response against Hamas and Gaza has been about right. 34% say not gone far enough.
Sure.
Now, granted, that was in May of this past year, so maybe that's changed. I would hope. But that.
What an unbelievably dated poll. May of last year? This might have been, was that before all of the Hezbollah attacks? That might have been before, I don't even remember their names. Now I'll never have to learn them. I don't remember when Sinwar, Hania, and is it Mohammed Daif? Or is it Daif Mohammed? When those three were killed. I don't even know if all three of them were dead yet.
That's all the most recent data.
Yeah, no, I know.
That was a long time ago.
40% last year said that Israelis should govern the Gaza Strip.
I know that people.
I don't know what's left now.
Why would now? Like, this is a good history question. Ethan doesn't have it. Like, they think that they should govern the Gaza Strip. Why would they think that, Sam? Why would they think that? Why would they think they should govern the Gaza Strip? Isn't that kind of weird? The answer is because one of the feelings that Israelis have is that when Israel is there, it seems like there aren't terrorist attacks coming from that place, and then when Israel leaves, there are. Right? They would argue that this happened in southern Lebanon. It's how Hezbollah was able to take over half the country. It's because Israel left. And they would argue this with the Gaza Strip, that the reason why Hamas was able to take over is because Israel disengaged in 2005.
Yeah, I agree. It's tragic what's happened, because I agree with you that they become jaded and they've become very comfortable with the idea of violence happening there in general, right? And I think it sucks. I think it sucks is an understatement. I think it's tragic, and like I don't know what. Truthfully, the situation is so fucked up that it just feels hopeless sometimes. But
it is hopeless, but it's because of people like the settlers in the West Bank, and then their opposites, people like Sam Seder, because they are incapable of engaging honestly with everything that's going on. People just like give their one telling, side of history, and then that's it. That's all you get. You get people talking about how every single Palestinian is a bloodthirsty murderer from birth who has no reason whatsoever to hate Israelis, or you get people like Sam Seder who say, I don't even know why any Israeli would ever hate any Palestinian. Like, everybody just wants to live in harmony. They just want a one-state solution where everybody's like kind and happy to each other.
It certainly does. But in the meantime, in this country, and we may not have the opportunity for a while, but we should cease all aid to Israel. We should stop protecting them in the UN. We should stop trying to pressure the ICJ and the ICC. And that's,
Well, incidentally, I agree with all those things too. I think that that's the most we can do as a country to try to stop the war, and it's something that we should be doing. And I think Kamala Harris would have been a lot more likely to do something on that front. Certain
we won't know.
We can't know, and that's the great thing.
Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I got to go because I'm supposed to have dinner for my child. But,
well, I'll say this. This was way more combative than I expected. Ultimately, though, I don't think that what do we disagree on? I mean, I don't know. I don't even know. Maybe I see too much good in the Israeli population. I mean, I don't know what's ultimately the disagreements here.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not, it's largely, in my mind, impossible to really fully assess. I mean, yes, there was a protest last year, 500,000 people who wanted the hostages back. In the
ceasefire.
I don't know if there's been. Well, they wanted the hostages back. I don't know.
It's not a magic wand. It's a ceasefire.
Yeah, and they got a ceasefire, and then the Israeli government broke it, and they.
Well, so hold on. Our disagreements is that I'm too optimistic about the Israeli citizenry.
I'm not here to adjudicate what.
I'm just trying to summarize our conversation. That's all.
Well, I mean, you summarize for you. I'll summarize for me. I think it is what it is. And I think I don't remember this conversation. We can put into AI and have it summarize it. But I'll
do that for you, and I'll let you know what it says.
All right,
we'll leave it to the robots. Okay. Sam, I do appreciate you calling in. I do value your input on all this, and I appreciate the conversation. I think it's good to have conversations like this, like open and honest, even if they're combative. And I think ultimately on the larger points we agree. But we managed.
Does the idea that the ceasefire protests are for Israeli hostages and not Gazan civilians hold any water in terms of relevancy / Israeli citizen sentiment, Destiny? Maybe a little bit. The reality is Israeli citizens probably don't like Palestinians very much. There are probably better arguments that you could even use if you really wanted to prove that, though, if you actually gave a fuck, right? Unless things have changed since I was there, right? The fact that all the workers in the West Bank basically had their work permits revoked was not good. The fact that if you were a Palestinian living in Israel, one of the 2 million Arab Palestinian Israelis, nobody hires you for work anymore. Jewish Israeli people don't want anything to do with you because they're so paranoid or mind fucked over future terrorist attacks and shit, right? If you wanted to point to a bad thought among the population, you point to things like that. But if Jews are just these weird, fundamentally evil, racist people, then I don't know, whatever.
Managed to find things to fight about anyway, and that's what two Jews do, isn't it, Sam?
That happens. That's my understanding. Appreciate it. All right, take it easy, man.
Have a great time with your children at dinner there. Enjoy.
Thanks, I will.
Bye.
You too, bye.
That was way different than I thought it was going to be.
Oh!
But okay.
I thought it was interesting. I enjoyed that as a watcher.
Was I owned?
I don't think you were owned. I don't think anybody was owned. I think it was two people that are highly opinionated hashing it out. And I think...
Can you debate Sam Seder on this shit? I don't know. Dude, Israel-Palestine debates make me want to kill myself. And also, I would never reach out for it. I mean, if he wanted to, he would, but I doubt he would on his own. I don't know. I don't have much of a desire for it.
Personally... like when people do that.
Yeah,
I don't get turned off by the combativeness.
Right.
Maybe it's that's the half Jewish part of me.
But the truthfully is, like, again, on the larger points we agree. That's why I take cross with this issue of being like, he's a genocide supporter, he's a fucking baby killer, and all this insane. He goes, Sam, you never heard of hyperbole? Yeah, I've heard of hyperbole. It's fucking. You're
the king of hyperbole.
Yeah. So I mean, like. Is my downfall that I have too much faith or I have too much optimism in the Israeli citizenry? Maybe I guess that's where we differ. That seemed to be where we were differing the most. I don't know.
I think you're right to identify that as and I mean Sam is older and he's in his 50s or something, and so maybe he's just more jaded.
It is shocking how little Sam seems to know about the details of the conflict because Jewish people, the diaspora, don't give a fuck about Israel. They don't know much about it because they don't care much about it, which is fair. Also, like, he's American. Sam is an American, right?
Yeah, he definitely is more jaded. There's no question about that, and rightfully so, right? Rightfully so.
But yeah, I enjoyed watching that.
I will say, as a Jewish person, the contentious point in the argument of the clip of Hasan, it kind of shocked me, to be honest.
I was a little, to be honest, and as much as I love Sam, he was being very obtuse, in my opinion, when trying to talk about that clip to avoid criticizing Hasan, which is fine. I understand he doesn't want to get into that game, right? Of being on record, being like, oh yeah, Hasan shouldn't have said that or whatever, right? But ultimately, obviously, I greatly disagree with him. And I think it's funny how he talks about how dangerous it is for me to call out anti-Semitism or how ridiculous it is for me to weaponize it like that. It's like when at the same time...
It's a weird thing because you don't really want to, like...
Jesus.
I understand the impulse to just want to have a conversation with Sam and keep it with, like, the here and now of, your beliefs and everything. But, the degree to which the harassment...
Why does every debate skip over the fucking question, what else should Israel have done? Even now, they touched on it and just kind of moved on. Because the thing that anti-Semites don't ever want to concede on is there is nothing that Israel could have done. It's just like when white people in the U.S. got mad at the kneeling over the over the football shit, the BLM like take a knee stuff, and they got super ass pained over it, right? Conservatives had said so many times, right? Stop rioting, stop being violent, find a way to protest that doesn't involve burning down cities or destroying shit. And they're like, oh, okay, what if we take a knee during, you know, NFL? You destroyed my football. Like, the reality is they don't want you to protest. They don't want to see it anywhere. They don't want to have to be reminded of it. They don't give a fuck. They just don't want you to protest. Same way for the Israeli shit. They don't want Israel to do anything. They want it to cease to exist as a state, but they are too weak or pussy to actually just own that opinion for whatever reason.
That you and Hila have experienced over the last couple of years, like it is part of the story, and like,
yeah, it's true.
I don't know, it's tricky because like I get the impulse to like not want to get into it, but like that is a component of all of this. That
well, and unfortunately, whatever Sam's been peppered with before the debate I've seen is his co-host telling him that I'm obsessed with Hasan, that I'm having a mental health break, that I'm a genocidal
shit, is that
all this
true?
kinds of stuff.
I haven't seen that.
That's kind of without having any of the backstory. That's the flavor he's coming in with. But ultimately, I find
if Emma's doing that.
I don't want to speak ill of Sam, right? I appreciate him coming and having an honest conversation with me. I was also disappointed by his response to that specific line of questioning, Zach. I share that with you. And I think the way that he was hand-waving away anti-Semitism as like...
Diasporites seem to be the least educated but the loudest voices about the state of affairs of their home countries. It kind of sucks that they basically tokenize themselves for white progressives struggling with white guilt and basically end up muddying the waters of very... Well, I mean, like Jewish people by their culture are going to be more akin to like views that basically try to displace white people with brown. Oh no, wait. I mean, be more progressive with their politics. I think just in general, maybe actually almost exclusively because of the fact that Jews seem to value higher education so much. That's just going to put them in a more progressive light. And so, if you are a progressive in the United States, you're probably going to be a Palestinian supporter because of oppressor-oppressee dynamics or whatever other bullshit. So, if that's the case, that you're a Jew and you're in the United States and you don't know much about Israel, then you probably are going to be, you know, pro-Palestinian. So it's just like a probability thing.
It doesn't matter that people are discriminating against Jewish people in America because of what's happening in Gaza. And it's like, well, first of all, two different issues, kind of. Whatever's happening in Gaza is one thing, and whatever rise into anti-Semitism we're seeing in America is a whole different fucking thing with its own set of problems. And believe it or not, they're both bad.
And that rise of anti-Semitism in the United States is also proof that it's probably just a little bit more than anti-Zionism that's at play here, because if it was just anti-Zionism, why would there ever be anti-Semitism in response to actions from Israel and other parts of the world, right?
Bad. To the same extent? Obviously not, right? Obviously one has an immediate, horrible effect in Gaza right now. And the threat of anti-Semitism is an amorphous, nebulous thing that's like hard to measure and hard to say, and Jews, our whole life in America, people call it the golden age of Judaism, is this time, the past, 50, 60, 70 years in America for Jewish people. We it's hard to tell, right? You go, oh, what is anti-Semitism? What isn't? And when you're allies with people that, in my opinion, are spreading dangerous ideas, like Hasan is. I think Sam, who grew up in I think he sees too much good in Hasan, and I see too much good in the Israeli population. And hey, who's to say who's right? I'm right.
Thanks.
Yeah, like
oh, there he is.
In response to what Zach was saying, like when I first saw that clip, I didn't see it that way, but I'm not Jewish, so I found it interesting that you guys are having this conversation. To give both perspectives. One thing I kind of wish is that you guys both...
Like, you're not going to see it that way because just looking at one thing, you're never going to see it that way. But that's kind of how this works, right? You usually have to start to see a collection of stuff before you get an understanding of like, oh, okay, hold on, I understand what this guy's talking about, right?
Find what Zionism is. Like what you...
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a big... point in all this.
I agree, and it's such a stupid word because it has such a broad meaning. And like when Hasan says Zionist tendencies, that's why I think it's important to ask Sam, who I think is avoiding the question, frankly, because he knows that it looks bad. He doesn't want to answer. So he responds by saying like, oh, you think this matters? Let's not talk about the specifics of what Zionist tendency is, because clearly Hasan's not anti-Semitic. Obviously, he doesn't have the context. And by the way, I'm still willing to give Hasan the benefit of the doubt that he's not anti-Semitic, right? But once again, as I've stated, yeah, I'm willing to. But at what I've said previously is that. He's very comfortable fostering a community that is blatantly hateful and anti-Semitic. He's comfortable, expressing these ideas irresponsibly the way he communicates, which is what that clip displays, I think. So while I don't think he's anti-Semitic, I think he's responsible for perpetuating a lot of it. And I think Sam's refusal to answer questions like what does Zionist tendency means was, a way of him avoiding answering a difficult question that would impugn Hasan. Because frankly, there's really nothing positive to say about what he did. And so Sam took I guess if you want to talk about debate, and Sam's a great debater, right? Everybody knows that. He's a great conversationalist. He doesn't really get the best of. Nobody really gets the best of him in conversation. I mean, the only way he could really take that on was to be like, it doesn't matter, in the totality of things. So that's the route he took, and I was disappointed by that as well. But at the end of the day, I knew it was unlikely that he was going to say a bad thing about Hasan. I was specifically trying not to even go there. In fact, when I showed him that first video of me talking about my views, I was kind of surprised that he actually had found something to criticize in it. I had said,
what was it? I don't remember.
Let me rewatch that clip because I was quite surprised. Like from the beginning, this conversation did not go how I thought it would at all, and it started with this clip here. Let me see. You know they're liars and bad faith weirdos. So here's what I'll say about Israel. Okay, listen. This isn't the first time I've said it, and I'll say it many more times. The cabinet is run by genocidal maniacs. Okay, they're led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal. Okay, he's made a coalition of the most like radically conservative freaks that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis. He was saying that there's this talking point that I've seen percolating on the left, which is that like, to put it kind of to summarize it crassly, that like Israelis are evil. Basically, I mean, to put it crassly, right? Like that's kind of what he's saying is that like the majority of Israelis just want civilians to die. I mean, that's kind of what he said, and he didn't even deny it. I think that's insane. I think that's insane, and especially the context of this clip being 2 days after October 7th, I think it was. The sentiment was a lot different.
Maybe I'm a little Temmie Dank, but do you think people like Hasan are actually anti-Semitic or just anti-Israeli? From what I've seen, it seems like he just hates Israeli people. I would say that people like Hasan are anti-Semitic, but it's just in like effect. I don't think a hatred for the Jewish people necessarily drives him. It's more just that everything that Israel stands for and it being a Western country is necessarily going to make him, basically, he'll be indistinguishable from an anti-Semite.
Before and after and during and now, the sentiment in Israel's changed a lot. So when I said that, I think it was more accurate. I think it's still accurate, but obviously there is a huge problem in Israel of people being, you know, complicit and comfortable with what the military is doing.
Right, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, and I don't want to represent myself as an expert on any of this at all. So if
opinion, Dan.
No, it's definitely not. Just from what I recall reading is that prior to October 7th, support for giving the Palestinians a state in Israel was at basically an all-time high, and that has cratered since October 7th, which is the great, one of the great tragedies of this whole situation, and kind of dark irony of it is it now feels like we are further than ever from some sort of peaceful solution to all this. So.
Oh, and then the thing that we didn't discuss is that most of the peaceniks.
Let me real-time fact check myself on that, because I mean that's a big claim. Yeah. I want to make sure that I'm right, but I seem to remember seeing polls that, you know, generally over the course of the last 10 years or so, support for.
I'm speaking like not just from stats, which I.
Bro, Hasan is in Ethan's chat saying he's scared Ethan will bring destiny.
I've looked up and seen polls and stuff.
Wait, what?
But like empirically, I lived in Tel Aviv for 5 years and I know what the people are like there, right? And obviously, it's a progressive city.
That's likely one of the more progressive pockets.
It is. It's like Los Angeles or New York is. You know, it's a progressive city.
Wait, is this chat live or is the chat tracking where the stream VOD is?
Right. So obviously, they'll be more inclined to want peace, but. Ultimately, what happened?
Everybody's saying Hasan in here.
Talk about.
Oh no!
Is that a ton of the peace activists, like most of them,
Hasan the
lived
Cope
on the southern border specifically so they could help people in Gaza. They would drive people across the border to the hospital.
Literally, nobody brings up Destiny except Hasan.
They were advocating, you know,
Destiny's got nothing to do with this conversation.
As individuals to help facilitate peace, and many of them, you hear their stories time and time again, were just murdered, slaughtered by Hamas, and I think that's part of what really jaded the Israeli public too. Is like, look what happens when you want to support peace. You know, obviously that's not, I don't think, the right conclusion, but that was their conclusion. It's like all the people that wanted peace were murdered by Hamas.
See, like I have, you know, friends or family even that will say that they don't believe there's an innocent Israeli. And I think obviously stuff like that is super dangerous. And
I agree.
I'll never agree with that. But in terms of like, you know, the Pew research is often what's referenced. And again, Sam brought that up, that there was only 19% of people in May in Israel from the.
He put a chat in saying, don't bring on a banned person or have to leave.
Poll who thought that it went too far. And
I got to see that poll.
Help me with the best argument to give against people saying that Israel is simply an occupier and should leave Palestine. I mean, ask them, how did the Arabs get into Palestine? I mean, it's a stupid argument.
Yeah,
that was from May?
Yeah, it was from May 2024. This is often referenced.
It's a little old, but I don't know if that's changed. Let's see.
Well, it's May tomorrow, so it's basically a year old, right?
Yeah.
I think, like, I totally agree that the public is way too comfortable and complicit in all this. I think